Chapter 603, The Race Catastrophe. Chapter 603, The Race Catastrophe. Do you want me to kill all of them? The ghost hunter talked to him softly, without any emotions. He made it look like killing Cao Qiu Dao's group wasn't harder than smashing an ant. His face was like he didn't put them into his eyes. However, Cao Qiu Dao, Cao Zhilan, and Queen of Heaven Fan Xiangyun felt as if they had fallen into an ice chamber. Even their souls felt chilled. The ghost hunter had reached level 9. At this level, the beast was as strong as a human true god realm expert. Only with their physical strength, they could move the mountain or level the sea. Not only they had the wisdom, but also the innate supernatural powers, which made they more dangerous than a new true god realm warrior. The good-looking face of the ghost hunter exposed his cold and brutal aura. Looking his red blood eyes, people knew right away he wasn't a good person. The ghost hunter had just broken through a new realm, so he really wanted to try his new abilities. He wanted to use Cao Qiu Dao to test his new strength. Shi Yang squinted as he cracked a forced smile. I didn't think that you could break through that fast. You're such an alien. The ghost hunter's level-up speed was much faster than his. Shi Yang still remembered the first time he saw the ghost hunter. At that time, this beast was just a level 6 beast. It had been just a few years, and the ghost hunter had entered level 9, a high rank of demonic beasts. The power of this level wouldn't be less than his. Shi Yang's smile bloomed as he was giving the beast compliments in his heart. He squinted and looked at Cao Qiu Dao's group. Under his scrutinizing look, Cao Qiu Dao, Fan Xiangyun, and the others kept their mouths shut. They had reached the spirit realm, but they were begrudging at this moment, as they regretted turning their back on Shi Yang that year. The one who had the biggest regret was Cao Zhilan. That year, she had favored Shi Yang's potential a lot, so she did want to create a good relationship with him. When his martial spirit got mutated and he was hurt by Kai Yang, she thought that Shi Yang's future had ended from here. That's why she had changed her attitude. If she could be more persistent, she would have found that Shi Yang's potential wasn't something she could predict. Unfortunately, one wrong move would make for a lifetime of regret. She was always confident that she was wise with eyes like the torch. But her deeds planned on Shi Yang had affected the Cao family. If I had endured, and I still stood next to him, perhaps the Cao family would have stepped in the divine great land now. Cao Zhilan was sad, tears lingering in her eyes. Do you still want to provoke me? Shi Yang curled his lips, smiling quietly. He waved his hand nonchalantly. I don't want to do anything with you guys. You should return to where you come from. With the power and the position he had now, if he wanted to humiliate Cao Zhilan, he could do as he pleased. Cao Qiu Dao, because of the general picture, wouldn't dare to protest against him. However, as his vision was wider, he wasn't as narrow-minded as before. At this moment, the pagans were raging all over the endless sea. Human warriors fell everywhere. Even Yang Yi Tian was killed. The hotshots remaining included only Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiangyun. Anyway, they were all human. In this calamity, they shouldn't develop grudges against each other. We aren't provoking. Cao Qiu Dao took a deep breath, his face grim. Shi Yang, we just want to live a difficult dream at this moment. If you could help us, we agree to give you everything. Everything? Shi Yang frowned. His eyes sparkled coldly. What do you have to give? To me, all of you aren't worth my help. Shi Yang, it's all my fault. I beg you to help us. All of a sudden, Cao Zhilan stepped forward. In front of everybody, she kneeled down. Her white neck craned as she was whining. As long as you save the Cao family from this calamity, I'm willing to receive any punishment. Little Lan, Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiangyun screamed in unison. They hurried to lift her up. However, she was so stubborn. She kneeled down, tearing rolling on her face. She was looking at Shi Yang with yearning and begging intentions in her eyes. Don't beg him. Cao Qiu Dao was indignant, thundering. Our Cao family has stood firm in the endless sea for thousands of years. It's not easy to uproot us all. We will definitely have a chance to live. No, it's different this time. It's different. Cao Zhilan scooped and cried. No one can help us this time. They are. They are so strong. Yang Yitian and Jiyu Xiao are dead. One by one, they both died. The endless sea is now hell on earth. If we don't leave, we can't survive. Cao Zhilan was grim and mournful. Fan Xiong-yun intended to advise Cao Zhilan, but having heard her say so, she just sighed, shaking her head and not saying anything. She then turned to Shi Yang, her eyes begging. Shi Yang, if you are a man, don't be arrogant. Man Jiyu shouted. If you can save us, my life will belong to you. No matter what you want to do to me, kill me or hit me, you can do anything. Shi Yang was surprised. Swinging his hand to signal everybody to calm down, he closed his eyes and released his soul consciousness to survey the entire Tutor Sea. The soul consciousness with space power glided rapidly above the Tutor Sea like lightning. Images of numerous islets there were sent to his sea of consciousness like stars in the sky. He received the direct view situation of the Tutor Sea. The Tutor Sea had many islets. Under his soul consciousness surveying, he saw all the inhabited islands ruined and burned down. Columns of black smoke appeared on some islets as the houses were all burned. The vast jungle was charred in a sea of fire. Countless spiritual mountains and lakes were grey and desolate. Creatures were living in misery everywhere his soul consciousness had passed by. This picture was like hell on earth. Civilians became slaves, as the warriors of the underworld drove them like a herd of sheep towards the underworld boundary. Against the human warriors with relatively high cultivation base, the hotshots of the underworld had used some mysterious treasures to force their vitality and essence chi out of their bodies. Their deaths were tragic as, all of them had turned into withered corpses. At the main base of the Yin-Yang Fairyland and the desolate barbarian school, warrior corpses flooded the place. Many blood-dripping skulls were kept around the small island, as if bragging about their bloody and imposing triumph. Many unbearable footages were sent to him through the soul consciousness, projecting on his sea of consciousness. He was a cold-hearted man, and he didn't want to interfere. However, when his mind opened, his calm face started to become indignant and brutal. So cruel. The race war made genocide their goal. Getting the images of those terrible operations, Shi Yang, a cold-hearted man, couldn't help but let the anger inflame him. You don't need to be enraged. No matter which epoch it is, the war between races is always merciless and ruthless. The ice-cold flame sent its soul fluctuations from the blood vein ring. As far as I've known, to get the ruling position, mankind had done the same to the other races no matter it was the Dark Clan, the Dark Spirit Clan, or the Ghostmark Clan. That's why they had a deep resentment to mankind. It wasn't something unreasonable. Shi Yang's face darkened. He nodded quietly as he had accepted what the ice-cold flame had told him. But it didn't mean he approved and would let the situation develop furthermore. The situation was like this in the Tutor Sea. Perhaps, it was the same bloody scenes in the other sea areas in the Endless Sea. Musing for a while, he took a deep breath, then talked to Cao Qiu Dao. From now on, all of you will join the Yang family. I'm going to help you get out of this place. I'll try my best to protect you and not to let you suffer from genocide. Join your Yang family? Fan Xiong-yun was stunned. We can. Cao Qiu Dao was frank enough. He agreed curtly and turned around to talk to Fan Xiong-yun. At this moment, the Cao family and the Yin-Yang Fairyland only have the name left. In fact, we don't have anything left. The Endless Sea is now in chaos. I think the other places should be the same. We should gather the human forces. We should join hands to resist this genocide catastrophe. It's the duty we can't deny. Fan Xiong-yun was struck. Her eyes brightened as she gritted her teeth and said vehemently, "As long as we can kill these pagans, I will do anything I'm told." "What's the deal?" asked Cao Qiu Dao immediately. Shaking his head, Shi Yang darkened his visage. "We don't need any deal. As long as I'm strong enough to subdue you, I think you know what to do. If you are getting stronger one day, our agreement has nothing powerful to bind you." Having experienced so many things, he had soon known that strong power was more important than anything else. Without power, the so-called agreement was even thinner than the hymen, which could be pierced through with just one poke. "All right." Cao Qiu Dao nodded. Shi Yang didn't say anything else. He nodded to the ghost hunter and sent his thought to the other strange creatures to tell them to get back to that special space. There were many skeletons with available energy in that space. No matter it was the ghost hunter, the king of demonic insects, or the devouring gold silkworm, they could use this sort of energy to enhance their strength. That's why Shi Yang gave them more time. I don't need it anymore. Just let them go, said the ghost hunter with an emotionless countenance. His garnet eyes glared at the devouring gold silkworm, the king of demonic insects, and the Holy Spirit god. Of course, these three monsters obeyed Shi Yang a lot. They got back to the space slit once again. Shi Yang beamed a forced smile. He thought for a while and then said, as things have come to this, perhaps the teleport in the Yang family is broken. Yeah, I need to build another one. Teleportation formation? Where does it lead to? Cao Qiu Dao's eyes brightened. To the divine great land. Cao Qiu Dao, queen of heaven Fan Xiong-yun, and the others got stirred up, as if they were about to have a new life. They glowed happily. First, you need to defend all directions. I'm going to build the teleportation formation. Shi Yang assigned the ghost hunter then talked to Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiong-yun. I need many auxiliary materials. I thought you guys must have them. I'm going to tell you the names of the required materials. You should get them for me. No problem. The two were frank and generous. They nodded, took out the storage rings on their fingers, and sent their soul consciousness into them to sort out their cultivating materials while waiting for Shi Yang's order. Chapter 604, Dark Sea Overflows. Chapter 604, Dark Sea Overflows. The Cao family and the Yin-Yang Fairyland were one of the strongest, oldest forces of the Endless Sea. Through thousands of years, the assets they had accumulated could stun people. Shi Yang told them the auxiliary materials needed to build a teleportation formation. Cao Qiu Dao and Queen of Heaven Fan Xiong-yun nodded immediately, which told him that they had all the materials he required. The materials that were scarce in the divine Great Land seemed not strange to Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiong-yun. When Shi Yang said the names, they could take the exact materials from the storage ring. When they left their families, they had stashed the properties their families had collected for thousands of years into different storage rings. There were more than 10 storage rings with different colors on Cao Qiu Dao's and Fan Xiong-yun's fingers. Shi Yang was quite amazed. To be able to build the teleportation formation as quickly as possible, it seemed these two people didn't want to hold anything back. Shi Yang was astounded. As his thought flickered, he couldn't help but tell them the names of some other materials. The Heaven Flame Refining Devine technique required a huge amount of auxiliary materials. As he was worried about how to collect them, seeing Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiong-yun, the two filthy rich people, he didn't want to be polite by not asking them for the required materials that he lacked. Thus, Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiong-yun couldn't bear it, their faces became grimaced. The Heaven Flame Refining Devine technique was a strange method to refine the heaven flames that needed many different types of materials, of which some were never seen before. Their names could be seen only in some ancient books. Fan Xiong-yun and Cao Qiu Dao had a broad knowledge, and their families were much stronger than the other small forces in the divine Great Land. However, they had never heard about many materials Shi Yang had asked them. Light dimmed in their eyes. They started to worry. They thought that those auxiliary materials were all needed to build the teleportation formation. As they didn't have enough materials, their faces became glum. Shi Yang was actually astounded. When he told them the materials that needed for the Heaven Flame Refining Divine technique, he didn't think that they could have any of them. However, it turned over his expectation. These two had some mysterious materials that he didn't know how to find. This thrilled him. Don't worry. We have the other way around to make up for the missing materials, Shi Yang comforted them. I have something, too. If you don't have them, I can lend you some. I'm sure you can leave the Endless Sea. Don't worry. Shi Yang smiled, his mood was good. He took all the cultivating materials that were piled up on the ground. Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiong-yun were the freaks who had lived for more than 100 years. Of course, it was hard to deceive them. They had observed for a while, and immediately knew Shi Yang had seized the chance to rob them. Naturally, they wouldn't say anything, as they could ease their minds now. As long as he could build the teleportation formation, even if Shi Yang had tricked them to take some more materials, they could let it go. I'm going to carry it out. You guys should protect me during the process. Yeah, except for the time when I carve the formation, you can take rest. Don't worry too much. Shi Yang smiled until his eyes narrowed. After he had taken the materials, he started to keep himself busy, not noticing the others. Corpse Mount and Corpse C were standing next to him. Before he started his work, they discussed with him for a while. Right after that, Corpse Mount, Corpse C, and a crowd of the newly formed members of the Corpse clan followed the devouring gold silkworm and the king of demonic insects to that mysterious space. The energy in the skeleton there was pretty useful for them to increase their powers. That space had many jade-like bones that they could absorb energy from. To Shi Yang, this sort of material didn't have much value. However, to the members of the Corpse clan, it was the energy that could enlighten them. It would help them gain intellect sooner. Everybody was busy with their own stuff. Ghost Hunter and Cao Qiu Dao's team were patrolling around. Shi Yang focused on creating a new teleportation formation. Corpse Mount and Corpse C were taking their clansmen to take the energy from the bones. Time flew by. It had been 5 days. That day, in the immense light, the Ghost Hunter howled. His whistle stormed out violently, raising big waves on the sea in front of them. Cao Qiu Dao and the others were startled. They knew something was going to happen. Then, they hurried to gather near Shi Yang. Covering himself with a strange halo inside a round structure around hundreds of meters squared, Shi Yang was using the earth flame to refine the materials. The Ghost Hunter's whistle had awakened him. His soul consciousness moved as Shi Yang retrieved a glorious piece of silver jade. He frowned, looking at the thick cloud in front of him. Dark Clan's hotshots. In the cold, evil dark chi, dark dwellers were floating around. They all looked thin, their eyes sinister. Each dark dweller was slender, wearing a dark armor. Their hair and skin were silver, gray, or garnet. A Dark Clan's expert standing in the front was around 2 meters tall, but he was as thin as a stick. He was holding a bronze mirror, his face indifferent. He had a distinctive aura of the true God Realm warriors, which led to the change of heaven and earth's aura around him. Yama King Hades, one of the 3 great warriors of the underworld, was the one in charge of clearing the Tutor Sea. Standing behind Yama King Hades were 3/3 sky of spirit realm experts. They were all middle-aged, their faces were brutal and vicious. A malicious light sparkled from their eyes. Cao Qiu Dao, wind has changed. The Tutor Sea will never be under your cow family's control again. Yama King Hades was standing in a dark cloud, talking arrogantly. Above his head, sunlight and moonlight seemed to be covered, such that they couldn't shine on the ground. Only the stars could be seen twinkling from time to time. Hades. The one who had answered him wasn't Cao Qiu Dao, it was the Ghost Hunter. He was floating up from the cold wind island. This beast now looked like a young, heartless man. The curves of his mouth were both cold and sharp like a saber. His eyes were garnet, while he was exuding the distinctive aura of the underworld. It's you. Hades had soon realized something abnormal in the cold wind island. But he didn't expect that what made him anxious was the Ghost Hunter. He knew the Ghost Hunter's profile well. The Ghost Hunter was the hybrid of the 2 imposing demonic beasts of the underworld and the demon area. He had both dark chi and demon chi in his body. He could be considered the most inexplicably magical creature in the universe. His birth had astounded them a lot. Yeah, the Ghost Hunter was always cold. You should leave. This place isn't the place you can control. My master's here. You won't take the things you want. Master? Hades laughed fiendishly. An intimidating beast like you is willing to take a disgusting human your master? Ghost Hunter, you are the most inexplicable living being in this world. Kai Yang, Bo Zun, and we had always treated you as our friend. We didn't want to enslave you. He's just a lowly human. Is he worth your life? Don't babble. There's something I can't explain clearly, but I know that being with him benefits my future a lot. The Ghost Hunter wasn't moved but answered honestly. Future? Hades mocked. Do you think he still has a future? Mwahaha. I'm here today. Well, as long as they're human, They have to die all. What future does he have? Swoosh swoosh. Two clear sounds of things crossing through space echoed from the space crack not far from there. Corpse Mount and Corpse C appeared together, standing next to Ghost Hunter. It's you. Hades suddenly got enraged. He pointed furiously at Corpse Mount and Corpse C. Due to the change of heaven and earth, you should have received the inheritance already. You know what had happened, right? You are the intimidating Corpse Clan, the high-grade creatures like our Dark Clan. We should walk the same road. You too, are you going to protect this low human? Do you know what you are doing? Corpse Mount and Corpse C didn't change as much as the Ghost Hunter. They were too lazy to answer. They stood still and didn't move, but their attitude was clear. Good. 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 Hades was furious like a bloodthirsty beast. His eyes were sinister and evil as he said with a hoarse, cold voice, if you are persistent, don't blame me for killing you all. Befriending humans is your humiliation. You have no right to live in this world anymore, so that the other high-grade races won't laugh on your faces. The bronze mirror in his hand struck out, as the dark sea of the underworld appeared in the mirror. The seawater torrentially rose from the bronze mirror, covering the entire Coldwind Island. The water of the dark sea was the original fountain that gave birth and nurtured the Dark Dwellers. It was the symbol of power. Each member of the Dark Clan, after soaking the body into the dark sea, would have their power enhanced. Then, they could perform many secret techniques of the Dark Clan. However, this seawater was the most poisonous toxin to the other races. The dark sea water could drag the soul of the other race's members in for a short time. As long as the creature was soaked into the water, the waves would drag their soul out of the body. Then, the soul would lose its memory and consciousness. Eventually, it would become a primitive, resentful spirit of the underworld. After the three Yama kings Abi, Hades, and Dark Sky were hurt severely in the Endless Sea, Yang Tian Emperor, and Cao Qiu Dao didn't dare to attack the underworld because of the Dark Sea in the underworld. The Dark Sea was strange and evil. There was no method to eliminate the sea's effect on souls. If the Dark Sea seawater touched the warriors a little bit, their souls would lose a part of memory. The bronze mirror in Yama King Hades wasn't a strong treasure, but it could draw the seawater of the Dark Sea, which was terribly intimidating. If the Dark Sea of the underworld flooded the Endless Sea, human warriors there would be erased, leaving no trace. They didn't need a single battle to get what they wanted. The torrential waves of the Dark Sea furiously gushed out from the bronze mirror, pouring on the Coldwind Island. Shortly, the Coldwind Island was flooded with the Dark Sea's water. All creatures, no matter they were human, demonic beasts, or the members of the Corpse Clan like Corpse Mount and Corpse C, were releasing different types of halo and light cages to separate their bodies from the seawater. No use. You can't endure for a long time. And me, I have plenty of free time. Hades laughed contentedly. Chapter 605, Underworld God Sacrifice. Chapter 605, Underworld God Sacrifice. Yama King Hades wasn't hurried. He led a group of Dark Clan's experts, hiding in the thick dark clouds of the underworld. They were enjoying the dark chi of the Dark Sea while waiting for the opponent to be weakened. As long as the creature had a soul, the Dark Sea water would drain its soul power, and it couldn't resist for a long time. Human warriors like Cao Qiu Dao and Queen of Heaven Fan Xiong-yun had used their essence chi to create different colored light balls, covering their bodies to prevent the Dark Sea water from touching them. As Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiong-yun had reached the spirit realm, countering the soul erosion wasn't too difficult. However, Cao Zilan and Man Jiyu were struggling hard. Under the erosive effect of the Dark Sea, their souls fell into the endless darkness, their consciousness blurry. Corpse Mount and Corpse C were also a kind of creature. Even though they were the clansmen of the Corpse Clan, the Dark Sea could still affect them. Fortunately, these two had a strong physique, and they were good at using the five elements' power. They had urged the earth power to create a thick soil wall to shield them. The seawater couldn't touch them. Shi Yang was using the same method as Corpse Mount and Corpse C. Seeing the experts of the underworld, Shi Yang wasn't anxious. He was still staying inside the center of the giant formation to build the teleportation formation. He was gently wetting the exquisite, magical formation, pouring his soul consciousness, winding around the shape of the formation that was getting more perfect over time. The copious dark sea water swarmed over, covering him. However, Shi Yang wasn't affected even though he was soaked in the seawater. He was still working on his formation. Yama King Hades came here for Cao Qiu Dao's group. However, after he found Ghost Hunter, Corpse Mount, and Corpse Sea accompanying Shi Yang, he got indignant and made Shi Yang his primary target. He led the dark sea water here to catch all those people. But Shi Yang was safe and sound, which enraged him more. Kid, an inferior existence like you shouldn't continue to live, Yama King Hades snorted, as an ash-grey light glowed behind his back. A strange soul fluctuation poured into the dark sea all of a sudden. Gold ash-grey light dots arose in the dark sea water. They were like creatures living in the sea, slowly swelling. Gradually, they became the strange, ugly creatures with sharp claws and thick white fangs. They were as agile as shuttles moving in the dark sea. The sharp-edged dark beast was the endemic creature in the dark sea. It could nibble all kinds of creatures with its special skill called Shivering Soul. This kind of a bizarre beast of the underworld didn't have a specific level. They could always evolve quickly, but the obstacles in their cultivating process were tough. Most of the time, many of them died while breaking through. The sharp-edged dark beasts had a pointy body, like a cone with sharp teeth, and the innate soul technique called Shivering Soul. Even the hotshot of the underworld didn't want to mess up with them in the dark sea. They moved in schools, and their innate Shivering Soul ability could join and release together dangerously. The sharp-edged dark beasts were gliding and surfing like fast fish in the dark sea at a fast speed. Soul energy quickly gathered in the dark sea. Each sharp-edged dark beast became a cage that could trap the soul as they swarmed forward. Shi Yang was squinting to focus on his teleportation formation. He was adding more auxiliary materials when he felt his sea of consciousness suddenly shudder. Flows of strange soul energy had intruded his sea of consciousness. Those flows were scattering, but they seemed to follow some sort of natural soul formation, which would make the soul power of the host soul tremble continually. This situation would put the warrior into a coma. After Shi Yang had studied the formations in the blacksmith secrets of success, he had a new cognition of using different natural powers. He knew that even demonic beasts knew how to use the formation in the most natural way. Shivering soul skill of the sharp-edged dark beasts used the scattering feeble souls, joining them with their endemic fellows to create the highest attack mode. Shi Yang frowned and he temporarily stopped his work. A strange light dot glistered in his eyes as the soul fluctuations in his sea of consciousness became fierce. Die out. His host soul floating in the sea of consciousness shouted a pair of soul words. That word then condensed into a solid square, sparkling with a silver light, flying towards the barrier in the sea of consciousness. A gloomy soul light of the sharp-edged dark beasts shimmered on the barrier in his sea of consciousness, creating a soul formation that had formed an octagonal natural formation. It shot out rapidly toward his host soul. The symbol die out was condensed from the soul, which carried the meaning of the death intent domain. The mournful, dismay aura of death overflowed, covering each gloomy soul light dot. Under the death intent domain, a will of death furiously flooded the soul light dots, destroying their belief in life. The sharp-edged dark beast dashed to him, but they all lost their vitality right before they could touch him. The soul consciousness of Hades added in them vanished. The sharp-edged dark beast sank into the deep place. They got killed silently like that. Yama King Hades felt something. He groaned in the dark chi above the dark sea. His voice was low at first, but its echoes were increasing. Explosions as loud as thunder filled the dark sea. Refined dark chi dispersed in the dark sea. Under the explosion, it condensed into an underworld's giant resentful spirit. This resentful spirit looked exactly like Hades, lively, dark, and evil. The spirit laughed fiendishly. It glided above the dark sea towards Shi Yang, then opened its giant mouth to bite his head. Well, you're bad luck then. Shi Yang curled his lips, cracking a smile while muttering something under his breath. A dark light ball detached from the storage ring. The light ball suddenly released waves of energy that could absorb the soul energy. Just like billions of tentacles, it started to capture and pull the resentful spirit towards the light ball. Soul gathering pearl, Yama King Hades discolored in fear. While he was fluttering, he bit the tip of his tongue. His blood was urged. Abruptly, his eyes now had a bizarre white hue, so people couldn't see his pupils. The resentful spirit struggled harder, as if it had been added with god power. Flows of gloomy energy detached from his body, shooting in every direction. Shortly, half of the energy that condensed the resentful spirit divided and escaped this way. However, the soul-gathering pearl had absorbed 1/3 of its energy. Its original power was damaged severely. When the resentful spirit ran away, Yama King Hades' white eyes became normal. His complexion was grim like never before. He thundered, "I didn't think that a kid like you can have so many evil techniques, which are even crueler than the technique our pagan tribes are cultivating." Shi Yang lifted his head to look at him. He chuckled, then continued to build his formation. He sent his thought, "Don't let him disturb me. I need to focus. You shoo him away for me." The ghost hunter covered in the dark sea around 100 meters away from him nodded, then a strange soul fluctuation released from him. The good-looking figure of the ghost hunter looked ethereal in the dark sea. He was like an illusion that was changing his position constantly, using the dark chi of the dark sea to adjust his physical status. His case wasn't similar to the others. In the dark sea, he was the only one who wasn't affected. Actually, his soul had gained benefit from the seawater. He was a hybrid of the demonic beasts of the underworld and the demon area. He was born with the gift of being able to use the dark chi of the underworld. The dark sea was the fountain of origin of the underworld. To him, it could give him a strange but useful energy to grow his soul. He had stayed idle to let the dark sea refine his soul and body, which had just been upgraded. This brought a big advantage to his future cultivation. "Hades, you should leave immediately. Or else, don't blame me for being impolite." The ghost hunter's body looked like fractured images reflected in a broken mirror. All of a sudden, it broke into small pieces, which seemed extremely strange. Yama King Hades was shaken, while his eyes showed his rage. He rumbled, "Ghost hunter, you dare attack me?" After his thundering roar, Yama King Hades' body started to distort as if numerous sharp blades were cutting him off. This scene gave people a fierce anxiety deep in their hearts. The ghost hunter's body turned into countless pieces, disappearing into the dark sea. The tranquil dark sea then started to surge vehemently like an enraged beast. Columns of water shot up to the sky, attacking the experts of the Dark Clan hiding in the sky. Each water column had the strange garnet eyes of the ghost hunter, as though he was hiding himself in each flow of his attack. "All right. If you don't care about your life, don't blame me." Yama King Hades was filled with rage. His eyes turned back to its original color. His arms, which were hiding in the loose sleeves, were as pale as the ghost claws. However, they didn't have any flesh. This sent shivers down people's spines. His hands were forming white hand seals, shooting into the air. They were triangular, conical, or round, etc. Each hand seal was shiny white, revealing the unique gloomy aura of the underworld. They seemed to promote the underworld's aura to the acme. Many white pale seals gathered under his feet. Gradually, they formed a pallid sacrificial altar, which was filled with resentful spirits. The resentful spirits there were exuding a white mist. The sacrificial altar descended rumblingly, snatching at the ghost hunter. Countless resentful spirit on the altar gushed out white mist, swarming towards the ghost hunter. The altar was covered in the white mist. A soul-destructive aura diffused from the altar, as if it was judging the creatures. The aura there was grim and solemn. The ghost hunter was besieged in the altar. All of a sudden, it turned back to the ferocious beast form, furiously roaring and attacking the white jade barrier of the sacrificial altar, releasing its strange and brutal energy. White bunches of light entangled the ghost hunter, piercing and intruding his body. Chapter 606, Separate. Chapter 606, Separate. The ghost hunter roared in pain. This bunch of light had cut off the sharp thorns on his body. Fine cracks also appeared on the ghost hunter's armor. "Are you convinced?" Yama King Hades shouted with his dark face. "This is the underworld god sacrifice. I got it from the Holy Land. Even the true God realm expert would become a sacrifice to the underworld god. If you leave that kid and work for our dark clan, I can spare you from this calamity. The ghost hunter was screaming and howling, but he didn't answer the Yama king. The armor on his body started to crack. Shi Yang was concentrating on building the teleportation formation. Suddenly, he turned around, facing the sky above his head. He had thought that the ghost hunter could stop Hades. He didn't expect that the beast would fall into this situation. Normally, a level 9 demonic beast was a little bit stronger than an expert who had just entered the true god realm. Although the ghost hunter had just reached level 9, Yama King Hades seemed to have reached the true god realm not long before himself. According to his estimation, he thought the ghost hunter would win. He had underestimated Hades' competence. Also, he didn't know that Yama King Hades had received a big harvest from the 3 bottom levels of the underworld. He should speed up building the teleportation formation. He didn't know when more pagan experts would come here after Yama King Hades. Thus, he was determined to finish this stuff at the fastest speed. As for Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiong-yun, he deemed that they wouldn't be eroded shortly. Thus, he wasn't going to protect them at the moment. However, from the current situation, things had gone beyond his estimation. Underworld god sacrifice. Shi Yang scooped his head and muttered while his face became colder. While his thought flickered, the storage ring flashed. 3 bone spears he had just refined shot out with a sharp whistle. The white light zoomed out as fast as lightning, crossed the space and appeared behind Yama King Hades, stabbing furiously. Puff! Yama King Hades trembled and fell forward. 3 blood holes appeared on his back. As his soul was controlling the underworld god sacrifice, when he got hurt, the power of the altar reduced greatly. The ghost hunter finally had a moment of freedom in the white altar. He took out the demonic bell and shook it crazily. Demon waves rippled from the bell. Amidst the strange jingling, the waves hit the sacrificial altar, and fire sparked everywhere. The ear-splitting explosions reverberated in the sky. Yama King Hades' soul was screaming heavily. Blood trickled from the corners of his mouth as he gazed at Shi Yang, talking through his gritted teeth. Damn you, human. A pallid underworld hand seal that looked like layers of white cloud descended rumblingly on Shi Yang's head, as imposing as a mountain. 3 bone thorns appeared next to him out of thin air. Shi Yang cracked a smile, his eyes bright. The bone thorns were refined from a level 10 beast's bones. Although they weren't divine weapons, however, after Shi Yang had added his soul consciousness, they became strange and unpredictable. They could cross spaces easily, which was the special feature of his soul consciousness. Space power could tear space, that no one could track down. It could storm out from any angles to perform the most dangerous ambush. Yama King Hades, a true god realm warrior, was his first experimental subject. Luckily, it worked all right at the first trial. 3 bone thorns had left 3 fist-sized blood holes on Hades' back. If Yama King Hades weren't strong enough, that strike could take his life. Shi Yang felt contented. Shi Yang wasn't worried about the mountain-like underworld hand seal above his head. He smiled quietly, urging his soul power again. The underworld hand seal snatched down. But all of a sudden, a space crack appeared above Shi Yang's head. Yama King Hades was stunned, looking at the underworld hand seal falling into that space crack and disappearing completely, leaving nothing behind. Shi Yang could counter the attack of the Ghost Mark clan sages at the True God Realm, which gave him a deeper understanding of space power. Now, he could tear the space quickly and swallow all furious attacks. Ghost Hunter, give him brutal attack. After he had dissolved the underworld hand sea, Shi Yang's soul was a little bit tired. He hurried to assign the Ghost Hunter. The Ghost Hunter was roaring and screaming crazily. The demonic bell in his hand was shaken constantly. Demonic light waves continually rippled, creating a barrier covering all Underworld's hotshots. Even Yama King Hades couldn't escape that demonic light. The demonic beast's power was much crazier and more ruthless than the Underworld's warriors. The tantrum of the Ghost Hunter had pushed the Underworld's experts backward. As Shi Yang had successfully ambushed Yama King Hades, the latter was bleeding badly. Since his underworld hand seal with his soul energy was swallowed by a space crack, and his soul was hurt, Hades couldn't urge the underworld god sacrifice again. He was distraught. Seeing the ghost hunter's rage, Yama King Hades had no way to counter. He knew that even if he could gather his energy, he wasn't the ghost hunter's match. Hades had to retreat. At a place far away from the Coldwind Island, he threw the bronze mirror out again to retrieve the dark sea water, which was covering the entire Coldwind Island, like a whale taking in water. Ghost hunter, wait for me. The next time I'm here is the time of your death. Hades roared indignantly. His figure faded away and eventually disappeared. The giant body of the ghost hunter changed. Shortly, he returned to the cold, handsome, but evil-looking young man. He sneered, his face disdainful. Yama King Hades left, so Cao Qiu Dao's group restored quickly. Cao Qiu Dao didn't get hurt. While Ghost Hunter and Hades were engaging in their battle, he had disappeared mysteriously for a while. Cao Qiu Dao had mastered his shadowless path. Once he disappeared and reappeared again, it was the time his life-taking attack came into effect. The reason why Yama King Hades had to retreat quickly was that he was afraid the shadowless path of Cao Qiu Dao. He understood well how dangerous Cao Qiu Dao was. He was like a toxic viper hiding in the dark, which could emerge at any minute. Shi Yang, what means did you use to dissolve Yama King Hades' attack? Cao Qiu Dao was surprised. He strolled to Shi Yang and asked, I'm good at hiding, and I have a profound knowledge of ambushing. I was behind Hades, but I didn't see the trajectory of the 3 bone spears. How did you do that? Fan Xiongyun also looked at him with an odd expression, waiting for his explanation. If you can break space, no one can track you down, Shi Yang answered nonchalantly. He didn't explain further, concentrating on the teleportation formation in front of him. Cao Qiu Dao contemplated. He vaguely got something, but Fan Xiongyun and the others didn't get the meaning behind Shi Yang's words. However, they didn't want to chase him. Seeing Shi Yang focusing on building the teleportation formation, they all shut their mouths and scattered to protect him from a distance. Shi Yang knew he didn't have too much time. He wholeheartedly put his mind to work. 3 days later, he had finished the formation, using his soul to carve the space nodes to connect this formation to the formation of the Northern Gem Mountain. The teleport formation suddenly glowed like a lamp, as unique space fluctuations rippled. We can leave now, Shi Yang exhaled, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Go through the teleportation formation, and you can arrive at the Divine Great Land directly. If you don't have any other ideas, we can go now. Cao Qiu Dao's group understood well that they couldn't linger in the endless sea anymore. They all nodded without any hesitation. On the other side, Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea acted strangely. The 2 of them were using a soft tone to summon the other members of the Corpse clan. You guys, Shi Yang was surprised. Is there a place called the Ancient Corpse Tomb in that land? Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea asked in unison. A strange light crossed Shi Yang's eyes. He didn't want to conceal. True. There's a place called the Ancient Corpse Tomb. How did you know that? The inheritance we got came from that area. Our fellows are still calling for us from that area using our Corpse clan's unique method. Corpse Mount talked slowly, but he couldn't explain clearly with unnatural pauses. However, both Shi Yang and Cao Qiu Dao understood his words, their faces scared. Shi Yang tried to press down the anxiety in his heart. He pondered, then gritted his teeth. Go. You should call your fellows, I'll take you guys there. Shi Yang. Cao Qiu Dao couldn't help but shout. Don't say anything. I know what you're thinking, Shi Yang looked cold. Even if they get stronger in the future and become the strongest force of the Corpse clan, I have no problem with that. As things have turned into this, a little more chaotic is not much different to me. Cao Qiu Dao was upset. But still, he didn't try to persuade him further, and just nodded begrudgingly. He and Shi Yang understood that the ancient corpse tomb in the Divine Great Land would absolutely have formidable experts of the Corpse clan. Once they let Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea come to the ancient corpse tomb, even though they had a good relationship with Shi Yang, they would be brainwashed. With the stronger power they could get from the ancient corpse tomb, they would become the executioners slaughtering mankind. I want to stay here for a while. They do, too. However, at this moment, The ghost hunter walked over with the devouring gold silkworm, the king of demonic insects, and the Holy Spirit God. There's power in the heavenly demon mountain range in the vault of Heaven Sea that could make us stronger. We want to get it. What kind of power? Shi Yang changed his expression. Don't know. But I can feel it, Ghost Hunter mused for a while. Wait until we can have that power in the heavenly demon mountain range, we will be stronger. At that time, we can support you better. The devouring gold silkworm, the king of demonic insects, and the Holy Spirit God stood silently near him, letting him talk for them. Shi Yang was moved. He knew the situation was changing massively in the way he couldn't understand. This world would become the battlefield of many races. If he could gather enough forces, he would survive the upcoming violent war. Of course, he wouldn't hinder them. He advised them to be careful. Eventually, the ghost hunter, the devouring gold silkworm, the king of demonic insects, and the Holy Spirit God left. They separated from him at the Cold Wind Island. Shi Yang activated the teleportation formation. He took Cao Qiu Dao's group and the crowd of members of the Corpse Clan to the Northern Gem Mountain in the Divine Greatland group by group. However, right after he appeared in the teleportation formation he built in the Northern Gem Mountain, he changed his complexion into a dark and sinister one. Chapter 607, Catastrophe. Chapter 607, Catastrophe. Columns of thick black smoke soaring into the sky looked like long dragons meandering on the horizon. Images sent to his eyes were all about ruins. It was the whole vast area of silence under his soul consciousness surveying. The Northern Gem City situated next to the Northern Gem Mountain had no fluctuations of life. It seemed that everybody living in the city had died. The teleportation formation he had built in a flank of a mountain in the Northern Gem Mountain wasn't damaged, but there was no man of the Yang family here. The entire Northern Gem Mountain had fallen into silence and darkness. Apparently, a big change had happened here. Floating above the Northern Gem Mountain, Shi Yang was worried, his eyes gloomy and serious. He continued to guide his soul consciousness around the area, then moved towards the Radiant God cult. Places where his soul consciousness glided above had no signs of mankind. The spirit temples of the Radiant God cult were just ruins now. Many cities and manors had been burned into ashes. The situation of the Radiant God cult was strangely similar to the Endless Seas. This was a genocide war. Cao Qiu Dao, Fan Xiong-yun, and the others also felt insecure. They were hovering in the sky, gathering their minds to observe everywhere. Their complexion darkened. The hope they just had developed seemed to be dragged out of their hearts little by little. However, the clansmen of the Corpse Clan including Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea acted as if they didn't see the miseries around. They kneeled down and bowed towards the general direction of the ancient corpse tomb, as though their god and their belief were there. Shi Yang's soul consciousness moved quickly. After a while, he descended on a mountain of the Northern Gem Mountain. His face was grim as he took a cold breath. The event happening in the Endless Sea also takes place in the Divine Great Land. Perhaps the situation here is more severe than in the Endless Sea. Cao Qiu Dao was stupefied. He sighed and then nodded. You guys should make up your mind. I haven't destroyed the teleportation formation in the Cold Wind Island. If you want to go back now, I can take you there. Shi Yang's face was ice cold. He didn't want to conceal anymore. As far as I am concerned, the Divine Great Land's now more dangerous. If you stay here, I'm not sure what would happen. We need to discuss. Cao Qiu Dao didn't decide immediately. He pondered, then muttered to Fan Xiong-yun and the others. We need to discuss. Whether leaving or staying, we need to decide quickly. I'll go and check for a while. You guys stay here and make up your mind. Shi Yang frowned. Abruptly, he flew towards the Spirit Treasure Sect. Shortly, he was in the adjacent area between the Spirit Treasure Sect and the Northern Gem Mountain. Shi Yang urged his soul consciousness to sense the wonderful stone city. A deadly silent area. Shi Yang discolored in fright. The surprise in his heart swelled bigger. From deep inside his soul, an anxious, frightful feeling arose. What had happened? The Radiant God cult and the Spirit Treasure Sect were both destroyed. Why had such strong ancient factions collapsed, and their main gate struck down? He had stayed in the endless sea for only 1 year. It was a short period. However, the divine great land seemed to have an earth-shaking calamity. Everything had changed, and only one thing remained: the sun, the moon, and the stars were still shining together in the sky. Due to the change of heaven and earth, the powers of his martial spirits had been increased rapidly, which made him feel lucky. However, looking at the phenomenon in the sky, he only felt chilled. Was it the sign of an apocalypse? Was it the sign that mankind was about to be destroyed and replaced? With a stupefied complexion, he suddenly felt lost. He returned to the northern Gem Mountain in a daze. "We had decided to stay," Cao Qiu Dao said determinedly. "The Dark Clan and the Demon Clan are slaughtering the entire Endless Sea. Once we go back, we'll become the biggest targets. Although we don't know what has happened in the Divine Great Land, at least we haven't met any enemy yet. Perhaps, we won't become the main targets." At this moment, Shi Yang felt really distressed. He didn't think much and just said deliberately, "If you want to stay, just stay. As things have accelerated to this point, I have no means to support you much. I've said that you guys could be members of the Yang family. Forget it, we shall separate from here. We know nothing about this place." Cao Zhilan sighed piteously. "Before this event, I had known something about this place. But at this moment, you and I are the same." Shi Yang beamed a forced smile, waving his hand. "From now on, you should find your way to survive. I actually have no way to help you furthermore." He was really twitchy. The calamity that happened to the Radiant God cult told him that something really terrible had happened throughout the Divine Great Land. Nobody remained in this area. Even if he wanted to ask for information, he couldn't find anyone. He couldn't guess whether his family in the Yang family and the Shi family were still alive or dead, which put him deep into sorrow. "As far as I've known, your Yang family's immortal blood has magical effects. It can even sense the existence of the opponents and what will happen in the future." Cao Qiu Dao's eyes sparkled with strange light, talking to him with a soft tone. Shi Yang's eyes brightened. It was true. The immortal blood did have magical effect. "You guys should take a rest." Shi Yang's face was moved. He found a cave and sat down cross-legged. He used his mind to control the immortal rebirth secret to condense the immortal blood. Then, he could use the secret technique to predict. A ruby drop of immortal blood turned into scarlet mist under his power. Flows of pure energy rumblingly poured into the scarlet mist. His soul and soul consciousness started to change and cooperate with the red mist. He was using the obsessiveness in his mind to call for one person, using his thought to sense him. An immense light glowed inside the scarlet mist, turning into a hazy mirror. An image slowly appeared in it: Yang Zhuo. Yang Zhuo's shadow became clearer. He was in a desolate jungle. The big trees there seemed to wither. The flora there was tall and strong, jutting from the greenish-grey ground. Thick grass was reaching around people's waist. Shi Yang could see the vague images of some persons standing next to Yang Zhuo. With a close look, he could recognize them. They were Yang Mu, Yang Shui, Shi Jian, and the other seniors of the Shi family. Many people were gathering and discussing something. It gave Shi Yang a severe and solemn feeling. Shi Yang was struck. He poured more soul power into the red mist to expand it. Abruptly, the red mist projected more shadows, all of them being vague. Shi Yang couldn't see their original appearances. However, from their shapes, he knew they were all humans. Switching his view, he recognized many shadows moving in that vast jungle. He didn't know how many people were gathering there. Swoosh! A beam of light shot out from the jungle, piercing through the red mist in front of him. His fog dispersed. The effect of the immortal blood was over at this moment. Shi Yang's soul and spirit were exhausted, and he woke up. Cao Qiu Dao and his team could feel the energy moving in this area. They wanted to get closer, but the war devil had stopped them. Cao Qiu Dao got it. As the war devil had stopped them, they didn't try to barge in, just waiting at their spots. Inside the cave, Shi Yang took the soul-gathering pearl out of the storage ring. Watching the fine fibers moving inside the black pearl, he felt happy. Putting the soul-gathering pearl at his glabella, Shi Yang used his sea of consciousness to draw that pure soul energy bit by bit. After half a minute, he got up. His spirit was high, and the anxiety on his face was washed away. How was it? Cao Qiu Dao saw him walking out, so he hurried to greet him, his face longing. They're okay. They have moved to a place we don't know. Not only the Radiant God cult, but also the hotshots of the other factions are there. Shi Yang talked about the vague images he had seen. I think, the 7 ancient factions of the Divine Great Land have joined hands. They are gathering at the same place to counter the strong enemies. As long as we can find their location, you guys can go there, too. As Cao Qiu Dao heard him say so, his spirit was lifted up. You guys, Shi Yang was hesitant, looking at the members of the Corpse clan standing far from him. We want to go to the ancient Corpse tomb. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea replied him without any hesitation. Cao Qiu Dao's face was dark and cold while a brutal light sparkled in his eyes. Shi Yang squinted, looking at him coldly before he talked to Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea. You guys can leave now. I hope when we meet again, you still know who I am. We will. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea answered him in unison. Then, they used the special etiquette of the Corpse clan to bid him farewell. The 2 Corpse kings led their clansmen strolling towards the ancient Corpse tomb. Shi Yang looked at them leaving, his face odd, sad, and mournful. You should kill them. Cao Qiu Dao said with a cold tone. They are all pagans. Sooner or later, they will become your enemies. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea have unpredictably huge potential. If they get to the ancient Corpse tomb, their powers would skyrocket. Perhaps, they will become the future leaders of the Corpse clan. Your deed shows that you are irresponsible towards the entire mankind. It's okay, Shi Yang shrugged. According to my experience, sometimes, the pagan tribes are more trustworthy. Cao Qiu Dao was surprised, looking at him dazedly without saying anything. What should we do now? Fan Xiong-yun asked. How do we know the gathering spot of humans in the Divine Great Land? Shi Yang, do you have any clue? I have no idea at this moment. Shi Yang shook his head. But, suddenly, he smiled. You guys should stay here first. For a short period at least, this place should be safe enough. I want to go out to find someone and ask for the current situation. Who are you looking for? Anybody. As long as it's a living creature, I can use my soul to contact them. Even if it is a pagan, as long as it's alive, it should know what had happened in the Divine Great Land. Be careful. All right. You guys should be more careful. I'm going to block the teleportation formation here. Don't worry. No one can get here from the endless sea through this formation. You just need to watch over the situation around here. Cao Qiu Dao's group listened to him. They nodded silently, and they didn't ask to go with him. Shi Yang didn't say any more nonsense. He advised them and then flew towards the Spirit Treasure Sect. He could confirm that the calamity happened in the Divine Great Land is related to the alien tribes here. The Dark Spirit Clan and the Ghostmark Clan must have had a part in this. About the Corpse Clan, he didn't dare to confirm. The Spirit Treasure Sect had the shady Firmament Old Mound, the gathering spot of the Ghostmark Clan. Going in that direction, he could find something as long as he was careful. Chapter 608, Ringleader. Chapter 608, Ringleader. He didn't tell Cao Qiu Dao's team that he had gotten the location of Yang Zhuo and the others through the immortal blood. They were in the territory of the Martial Spirit Palace. He had to pass the Spirit Treasure Sect to go to the Martial Spirit Palace. He wanted to visit the Spirit Treasure Sect first to check the situation, and then he would decide whether to go to the Martial Spirit Palace's area or not. Cao Qiu Dao and Fan Xiong-yun had a relatively high cultivation base. However, they were taking almost 100 warriors with different cultivation bases. When such a force went towards the Martial Spirit Palace, it would be hazardous. He had locked the teleportation formation in the northern Gem Mountain. Since he had built this formation himself, when he found Yang Zhuo's group, he could create a new one, then use the space nodes to break the lock of the formation in the northern Gem Mountain. At that time, Cao Qiu Dao's team could get there from thousands of miles away. With a careful calculation, he used the fastest speed to glide above the Spirit Treasure Sect. Several days later, he arrived at the wonderful stone city. Hovering above the wonderful stone city, his face darkened as he let out a long sigh. The wonderful stone city was devastated. The city walls were broken badly, and the city was like a young maid who was raped many times. This scene looked incomparably pathetic. He saw no shadows in the city. Places where the packed stores used to stand were all empty. All the materials were robbed. Decaying bodies exuded a pungent smell in the whole city. Insects moved in schools, operating happily in every corner. Shi Yang shook his head while his soul consciousness was moving. He understood that the pagan clans had attacked the city. Fortunately, there weren't many bodies in the city, just around several thousand. This number was much different from the number of human warriors staying in the wonderful stone city. This meant many people had escaped this calamity. The body of a spirit realm warrior had an evident difference from the ordinary warriors. It wouldn't decompose in a short time. Using his soul consciousness to sense for a while, he didn't find any warriors at this realm. Thus, he was sure Zhu Yi's group was still alive. Gliding through the wonderful stone city, he flew towards the shady firmament old mound. Shi Yang concealed his aura and the anger in his heart. Shady firmament old mound was the gathering place of the Ghost Mark clan. As the catastrophe had happened in the divine Great Land, members of the Ghost Mark clan should have their powers recovered. They wouldn't hide anymore, and would operate everywhere. With this assumption, he was ready to fight when he reached the shady firmament old mound. Arriving at that bleak plain, looking at the burrows leading underground, Shi Yang squinted as he was sensing the cold aura diffusing from the holes. His eyes sparkled with cold light. A flow of soul consciousness that he had disguised and concealed sneaked into a burrow, entering deeper into the shady firmament old mound. Swoosh! His soul consciousness had barged onto an invisible barrier, causing fire to spark. Shi Yang was shaken as he thought the situation wasn't good. He retreated his soul consciousness and ran away immediately. Not long after he had left, a second sky of spirit realm warrior of the Ghost Mark clan walked out from the burrow Shi Yang had sent his soul consciousness into. That man was wearing a new armor with strange patterns. He wasn't bony anymore. Quite the contrary, this man was sturdy as his body was releasing waves of a dangerous energy. He stood at the entrance, snorted, then released his soul power to sense. After a while, he frowned, retrieving his soul consciousness and getting back to the cave with regret. However, right at this moment, the three narrow, snow-white bone thorns appeared behind him like lightning and stabbed him in just a blink of an eye. At the same time, under the dazzling sunlight above that warrior's head, a red light spot enlarged. A man that looked like an angel holding a giant sword with a brutal aura rumblingly descended from the sky. The sword was full of the destructive negative energy, storming into the warrior's sea of consciousness. Puff! The ghost scripture armor on his back was pierced through instantly, leaving 3 arm-sized holes in the middle of his back. Blood gushed out fiercely. Blood trickled from the corners of his mouth as the Ghost Mark clan's warrior couldn't help but shout painfully. However, his scream was hindered as a torrential wave of air ruthlessly was pressing from the sky. That warrior didn't have time to use the superior attainment of the Ghost Mark clan. He could only urge the ghost tattoo, creating a deadwood spirit armor to cover his body. Courting death. The man above his head smiled faintly. The giant sword in his hand was slashing down like a massive mountain on the warrior's head. Bang bang. That man felt his brain was shaken, and his sea of consciousness was disordered. Blood was continually streaming from the wounds on his back, then he went unconscious shortly. The young man holding the giant sword revealed himself at this moment. He grabbed the warrior by his neck and hurried to flee away from this area. After half an hour, 2 members of the Ghost Mark clan with Spirit Realm cultivation base appeared at the entrance of that cave. Someone had fought here. One of the 2 discolored. He walked towards a blood puddle, touched it then said coldly, "It's the blood of our clansman. Damn it. Someone has ambushed here. Report it. We shall chase and kill that murderer." The 2 hotshots of the Ghost Mark clan immediately released their soul consciousness, using their soul to contact some secret place in the subterranean shady firmament old mound to report their findings. Not long afterward, many members of the Ghost Mark clan appeared in this bleak plain, all having an excellent cultivation base. Cold yin aura diffused from them as they scattered to every direction to search for the target. The northern cold city was deadly silent. Just like the wonderful stone city, the northern cold city was one of the primary cities of the spirit treasure sect. But today, it was just a desolate city, as if its prosperity was just something in the past. Cold air exuded in a shabby store in the south of the city. A member of the Ghostmark clan was covered in thick ice, sparing only his head. Blood covered his face, which made him look fiercer. Shi Yang was standing in front of him, increasing the power of the ice-cold flame to keep that man conscious. I want to know what has happened in the divine great land during the past year. He asked coldly as a scarlet flame burst out from his fingertip. He put his finger on that man's chest. As his body was sealed in the ice, the flame drilled through the whole block of ice. In the extremely cold ice, the scorching flame didn't bring him any bit of warmth. Quite the contrary, it was a torture making him want to kill himself. However, when his thought had just appeared, his sea of consciousness surged, and that thought was dispersed. As you have the second sky of Spirit Realm cultivation base, in the Ghostmark clan, you shouldn't be someone that no one knows. However, if you want to use the treasure to report or make your soul collapse to exchange for sending the information here, it isn't appropriate, you know. Shi Yang curled his lips and laughed. I know your Ghostmark clan's soul Upanishads, so don't do your tricks in front of me. Shi Yang. You are Shi Yang. The Ghostmark clan's expert suddenly shouted, his face indignant. Hey! Shi Yang beamed a smile. You know me? Our Ghostmark clan had poured the calamity on the Spirit Treasure sect. We got your profile from many experts of the Spirit Treasure sect. Haha, it's you. It's you who broke into the place and let the Ghostmark clan see the sunlight again. Also, it's you who has activated the universe barrier, leading to the great change of heaven and earth. Haha. The catastrophe of the divine great land is because of you. We must remember your favor. Well, my benefactor, you are the benefactor of our clan, but you are the sinner of the entire humanity. The Ghostmark clan's expert laughed until tears rolled down his face. He looked both insane and joyful. With his words, Shi Yang was struck hard. He stood stupefied, not moving an inch. Ringleader. He was the ringleader. Previously, he could vaguely feel that the change of heaven and earth was somehow related to him. However, he didn't want to accept it, he didn't want to overthink. He just wanted to avoid the fact. Today, through this Ghostmark clan's warrior, he had finally known that he was the cause of the change in this world. Thinking about the catastrophe of the Endless Sea, about numerous human beings in the Grace mainland that were killed, Shi Yang was petrified. A massive painful and bitter shame overflowed from his soul, entering his brain and occupying all of his thoughts. He stood there emotionlessly, as if he had lost his soul. He didn't react to the provocation of that Ghostmark clan's warrior. It seemed something hard in his heart was fractured abruptly, pushing him into a big devil inner barrier that he couldn't restore his sound mind. It's related to you, but it isn't your responsibility. This is the trend of evolution. Without you, the space division would still happen. You just made it happen earlier. The other races have the right to live. Should they be expelled forever? Should their clans go extinct? The ice-cold flames thought sent to him from the bloodvein ring. It was using its own way to console Shi Yang. Shi Yang was still absent-minded as if he couldn't hear anything. You shouldn't let resentment nibble you. At this moment, you should use your best to save the situation. You have something you want to hold on. You have someone you want to protect. If you can't awake, things will never overturn. The ice-cold flame continued to comfort him. Shi Yang's soul seemed to gather once again as he was restoring his consciousness. His dim eyes started to brighten. Well, just say I did it, he nodded to that member of the Ghostmark clan all of a sudden. I've dragged you guys out. If it's my mistake, I can put you back. Everything's fine then. Ha ha ha. The Ghostmark clan's warrior laughed crazily. What the heck are you? Only you, well, do you think you can seal us again? A human kid with his spirit realm cultivation base dares to have this idea. Ha ha. Funny. You're funny. Well then, I don't need to ask you for the information bit by bit like this. Nothing's interesting anyways. Shi Yang pondered for a while and then said, I remember your Ghost Mark clan has a soul technique called the Great Soul Search Technique. The smile on that man's face froze, turning into a great panic as he shouted in fear. You dare! Shi Yang shook his head and didn't answer him. He extended his arm, putting on that man's forehead, then closing his eyes. He sent his soul into that man's head. The Ghost Mark clan's warrior was struggling hard, but he stopped right away. Like a clog, he didn't have any vitality anymore as his sea of consciousness was grabbed and squeezed. Changes of the divine great land during this year turned into the tide of memory and slowly emerged in Shi Yang's brain fully. Chapter 609, Opportunity. Chapter 609, Opportunity. Not long after he had left the divine great land, the alien tribes with the Dark Spirit clan, the Ghost Mark clan, and the Corpse clan as their representatives had carried out their invasion to the forces in the divine great land. Shortly, the 7 ancient factions, including the Radiant God cult, were targeted. The pagans' invasion this time was fierce, with the participation of many true God Realm warriors. Yun Hao and the leader of the Pure Land weren't their opponents. They had to cooperate to retreat. An earth-shaking, bloody war washed over the divine great land. Forces everywhere were attacked, and many high-class human warriors fell. The powers of the Dark Spirit clan, the Ghost Mark clan, and the Corpse clan were imposingly beyond their estimation. Human warriors didn't know what to do. Their manpower was drained in battles as more and more warriors died every day. The Dead Souls Evil's lair of the Dark Spirit clan appeared everywhere. They could land all of a sudden in a random area. Right after that, warriors of the Dark Spirit clan would appear. Their force had caused the 7 ancient factions a significant loss. The Ghost Mark clan's members had soon recovered their energy. During the battles, the power of this clan slowly increased. After each battle, the power of the Ghost Mark clan's members would be enhanced, as if it had no limit. The Corpse clan was more dangerous. They couldn't die. Their rigid bodies gave human warriors a headache like their heads were about to crack. The 5-element space on the Divine Great Land was the place the Corpse clan trained their bodies. It became their backyard, where they gathered, collected cultivating materials and refining treasures. To human warriors, the 5-element space was a dangerous area. With only one wrong move, they would never return. However, members of the Corpse clan could stay in the 5-element space at ease. With the abundant cultivating materials there, they could refine armors and treasures. This boosted their general force to another big level. After the Dark Spirit clan, the Ghost Mark clan, and the Corpse clan, there appeared the Demon clan and the Monster clan. The Divine Great Land now had more races. Compared to the Endless Sea, they were stronger and more brutal. True God Realm warriors of the alien tribes appeared one by one, which completely snatched away the confidence of Yun Hao's group. Massive retreat. The 7 ancient factions took the lead. Forces everywhere in the Divine Great Land started to gather and move towards the Martial Spirit Palace. They disappeared into the Martial Spirit Palace's territory. The alien tribes had searched through the Martial Spirit Palace's territory, but they couldn't find the warriors of the 7 ancient factions. However, many pagans had their bodies buried in this place. This kept the hotshots of the alien tribes from operating furthermore, and they didn't enter the area of the Martial Spirit Palace. The alien tribes were planning something. It seemed they were discussing a new plan to capture all the human hotshots at once. Shi Yang closed his eyes, putting one hand on the head of that warrior. He was using the great searching soul technique of the Ghost Mark clan to search through the man's memory. When flows of memory entered his brain, the member of the Ghost Mark clan gradually lost his living aura as his life came to an end. The Great Searching Soul technique was a sinister technique of the Ghost Mark clan. It burned the victim's soul to generate the energy to draw the memory out of the victim's head. After the soul was burned out, most of the victims would die tragically. Some who survived would become retarded without memory. Retreating his hand, Shi Yang took a deep breath and put a little force on that man. Bang! A flow of surging energy struck the pagan's head, as though it was stirring something, making his head a mess of brain and blood. Right after the spirit realm hotshot of the Ghost Mark clan died, energy threads started to fly out of his body. All these entered Shi Yang's acupuncture points, leaving nothing behind. Shi Yang was struck as if he had swallowed a pill. The light in his eyes got brighter while his soul fluctuations became more robust. The development of the situation was beyond his imagination. He didn't think that the divine Great Land's whole picture had become that fierce. He had thought that this place would be safer. However, after he got here, he came to know that the place was much more chaotic than the endless sea. Looking at the strange phenomenon where the sun, the moon, and the stars all appeared in the sky, Shi Yang was sentimental. All things that happened were because of him. The existence of the massive space crack had led to the great change of the power in heaven and earth that awakened many alien tribes. This gave the strong power to the creatures that shouldn't exist in this world. The Dark Clan, the Dark Spirit Clan, the Demon Clan, the Monster Clan, and the Ghostmark Clan were the alien tribes that had disappeared for dozens of thousands of years. But now, they had escaped the foreign lands and returned to the divine Great Land. This was the additional brushstroke for this long-term calamity. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Flows of light smoke exuded from his acupuncture points. Under the effect of the negative moods, Shi Yang became hot-tempered. He suddenly had the mood to destroy everything. Thump, thump, thump. His heartbeat increased. His anger was like a scorching flame burning in his body. It was raising vehemently from time to time. Not good. His face changed. Shi Yang knew that if it continued this way, he would lose control again and fall into bedevilment. As a second Sky of Spirit Realm warrior, he could easily receive the accumulated energy of the opponent with the condition that he had to keep his mind firm, and he must not let his spirit disorder. However, what that man said had stirred up the picture he didn't want to see. Thus, he became more sensitive. When the negative mood arose, he hadn't prepared yet. The negative mood then flooded his mind directly, breaking his reason. Phew phew phew. Shi Yang panted heavily, and his face reddened. Sweat soaked him, with veins bulging out of his neck like some little worms. He looked terrible and fearsome. His muscles enlarged and shriveled from time to time. His body had a bizarre change. It looked like his change had stimulated the blood vein ring. The ring started to emit energy fluctuations, releasing a hazy red light, which was strange but beautiful. The energy in his acupuncture points wasn't controlled anymore. At first, it started to wreck his body. Gradually, it became more maniacal, and couldn't be controlled. Afterward, it deluged to his arm towards the blood vein ring. The essence chi of his entire body blended with the soul that had reached the spirit realm added with space power shot out like an incomparable light. Light bloomed from the blood vein ring. Crack. Some firm barrier was shattered, turning into countless light spots, scattering everywhere. The space inside the blood vein ring expanded rapidly, and the spacious area was enlarged. Flows of memory turned into spiritual thoughts and started to imprint onto a deep place of his soul. Shi Yang was struck severely. The blood-like light appeared in his eyes. The brutal mood eventually calmed down, and the murderous aura of his body started to settle. He stood there, using his soul to sense the thoughts in his head. He flipped between the imprints in his soul to search. Found him. 3 spirit realm warriors of the Ghostmark clan stood outside the northern cold city, their appearance cold. They were holding a strange, magical silver ball, laughing out loud. Rays of light appeared densely like the willow catkin. They vaguely marked the location of the northern cold city. Kelly is dead. A man with countless portrayed lines on his face said. His aura was like that of a snake, cold and evil. Keller. No matter who the opponent is, we will capture him. We will take revenge for your brother, said a member of the Ghostmark clan firmly. The hotshot of the Ghostmark clan called Keller had the 3rd Sky of Spirit Realm cultivation base. He was really strong among the 3. He was like rigid ice in an extremely cold place, which gave people an annoying feeling. I want his soul to be tortured for thousands of years. Keller gritted his teeth, his face pale. Abruptly, he dashed towards the northern cold city. A wide sword made of the extremely cold iron released a cold halo of metal while shooting out loudly, dragging a long light tail in the air, which was strangely beautiful. The extremely cold iron was the rare product of the Ghost Mark clan's secret territory. Each block was more than 10,000 jin, carrying the cold and the yin qi of the iron, which could get into people's bones and marrows. This material was really intimidating. The broadsword flew in the air, and shortly, it arrived above Shi Yang's head. Without giving time for Shi Yang to react, the broadsword slashed down directly, making a sharp whistle. Shi Yang was still sinking in some strange realm, and he looked like he was studying that realm. Hearing the whistle, Shi Yang instinctively swung his arms. Death and life seal. With the death intent domain as the foundation of energy, seals piled up in the air. The death intent domain expanded, covering his body. The sharp tip of the broadsword collided with the death and life seal. It tilted and couldn't slash down vertically. At this moment, Shi Yang suddenly opened his eyes and then snorted. The blood vein ring on his finger flashed, and the Sky Destroyer divine sword emerged. He didn't give Keller more chances. Eyes on the Sky Destroyer opened one by one. By the time 1/3 of the eyes opened, a crazy, murderous aura bloomed out from Shi Yang as the core. The Sky Destroyer divine sword had turned into a surging blood sea, which held an endless murderous aura, covering Keller's wide sword, which was made of the extremely cold iron. This blood sea washed the energy Keller had poured into the sword completely. Courting death. The two members of the Ghost Mark clan, who arrived together with Keller, couldn't hold their laughter. They then performed the secret technique of the Ghost Mark clan. One was on the left, and the other was on the right. Their soul energies fused, creating a ghost his soul sword, thrusting towards Shi Yang's host soul. Get out. Shi Yang squinted, using his soul to call the inner world 5 devils. The 5 devils turned into 5 grey silhouettes and flew out from his sea of consciousness. Shortly, they caught that ghost his soul sword. The 5 devils used force, grasped the soul sword and pulled it in 5 different directions. Shortly, the soul sword was divided into 5 pieces. The souls of Keller's team shuddered. They sprayed out blood at the same time. Apparently, they all got hurt. Well, the 3 of you, I couldn't ask for anything better. I will use your deaths to enter the new realm. Shi Yang felt the essence qi in his body was 1 grade lower than required. He sneered and then released the war devil. At the same time, he urged the negative energy. The ice-cold flame and the earth flame appeared on his shoulders respectively as he started his slaughter. He knew that after he killed these 3, he could use their essence qi to reach the second sky of spirit realm. His soul's realm had crossed the bottleneck beforehand. Chapter 610, Bao Ao. Chapter 610, Bao Ao. Keller had the 3rd sky of spirit realm cultivation base, which ordinary warriors would find hard to deal with. Members of the Ghost Mark clan had accumulated their attainment for dozens of thousands of years. They had a varied experience in fighting. The clansmen were innate fighters with magical martial spirits. At the same time, their understanding of Soul Upanishads was more profound than the others. Keller's realm could subdue Shi Yang. According to common sense, it shouldn't have been so strenuous for him to kill Shi Yang. However, when he really did that, he got to know things were never as they seemed. When Shi Yang used the Rampage Realm's ability, his power would accelerate massively. His body, which was refined with the golden marrow of the giant, had become even more tenacious. At this moment, he was at the non-human monster level. His sturdy body accompanied by the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame was more dangerous, especially with the magical recovery ability. Adding the unknown sword, his power was enough to provoke warriors at higher realms. Bang! The blood halo of the Sky Destroyer divine sword flashed. The extremely cold iron broadsword Keller had flung away was blocked, deviated into a curved trajectory. Keller's soul trembled. He put forth everything to deal with the inner world 5 devils, and didn't have the extra force to enhance the power of the broadsword. When Keller wanted to retrieve the flying broadsword, he found it was too late. He could only keep his mind and spirit to prevent the 5 devils from eroding his soul. It's you who courts death. Don't blame me. Shi Yang wore a ruthless countenance. He asked the ice-cold flame and the earth flame to find the chance and kill him. At the moment he was sinking in that magical intent domain, he had some images carved into his head, his memory. However, They were scattered and disordered. If he couldn't reorder those images, he couldn't know what situation it was. Vaguely, he knew that if he could understand those images in his head, he could know the profile of the blood vein ring's previous owner. Those images didn't bring any technique or power, but a mournful aura of the old times. That aura stormed directly into his heart, which made his soul resonate altogether. Those images seemed to picture the most glorious experience of one's life. However, Keller's team had attacked him maliciously without saying a word, while Shi Yang hadn't had enough time to understand them thoroughly. From the radiant god cult to the wonderful stone city and the northern cold city, Shi Yang had observed many tragic scenes. Human bodies were everywhere in the cities. Many of them had a pathetic death, and Shi Yang couldn't endure the sight. Everything was because of the pagans. The massacre in the Spirit Treasure Sect's territory was created by the Ghost Mark clan. At this moment, he had no good feeling or mercy towards the Ghost Mark clan. He just wanted to kill them all. "Kill him for me." Keller spat out blood while shouting, "Do not use soul power. This man's familiar with our clan's soul technique. The 5 devils are tough, too." As the 5 devils were entangling them, Keller and the other 2 couldn't endure. They had to spend a part of their power to deal with the inner world 5 devils. Shi Yang was emotionless, his eyes as cold as a saber. He held the Sky Destroyer divine sword while gazing at Keller. Shi Yang then performed the mysterious sword martial techniques. Beams of light shot out like meteors, swooshing over their heads like a raging storm. The war devil with its heavy armor was like a steel tank, as it rumblingly crushed over, attacking the other 2 from Keller's team. The 2 Ghost Mark clan's clansmen were struggling hard under the war devil's attacks. The mysterious soul techniques they knew had no effect on the war devil. Seizing the chance, the ice-cold flame and the earth flame discreetly took action. The freezing flame and the scorching halo flew out from the dark, hurting the other 2 instantly. At first, the ice-cold flame sealed them. While they felt the extremely cold temperature, blazing light entangled them, intruding their body and burning their internal organs. The war devil barged in like a collapsing iron mountain while they were screaming painfully. Under this severe impact, their bones fractured right at the spot. 2 souls scattered. Shi Yang beamed a faint smile, throwing the soul-gathering pearl to capture those 2 souls. He turned to Keller and shouted, "Don't let him run away." While he was shouting, his soul energy had turned into the simple space blades, attacking Keller's sea of consciousness. Each flow of his soul had been added with space power. Once he made an attack, it would turn into a simple space blade. Although it couldn't mince the opponent's sea of consciousness, it could steal the sensation of the opponent's sea of consciousness for a while. Keller's sea of consciousness was intruded. He seemed as if struck by the body fix technique, his eyes dull. The 3 attacking spears, War Devil, Ice Cold Flame, and Earth Flame took the chance and froze Keller's body instantly. Then, under the heavy pressure, Keller broke into countless pieces. The soul-gathering pearl took Keller's soul while his essence chi flew out, entering Shi Yang's body. Shi Yang was struck all of a sudden as he felt the surging energy was flooding his body. He assigned the War Devil, the Ice-Cold Flame, and the Earth Flame before sitting down cross-legged. He didn't bother with the location, just calmed down his mind to cultivate, refining the negative energy to produce the mysterious, strange power. During this process, the blurred images in his head became clearer, starting to flash in his head. His eyes were as bright as diamonds. He was condensing his energy while paying attention to the magical images in his head. He wanted to reorder those images to know what had happened after all. Thick dark clouds from the horizon drifted in the sky of the northern cold city, covering the sun. A demonic dragon which was more than hundreds of meters long was meandering inside the dark clouds. This demonic dragon was covered with black scales that looked to be made of black iron. The dragon had a pair of curly horns, with a massive, ominous aura. A man in his 30s was sitting upright on the head of the demonic dragon. He had long black hair draped over his shoulder, and looked handsome in a grey robe. He was imposingly majestic. A strange triangle mark lied in the center of his forehead, shimmering with an evil, gloomy halo. It was like that middle-aged man riding the demonic dragon had passed the northern cold city by chance. His pair of dark eyes that didn't have any light squinted as he was looking ahead of him nonchalantly. All of a sudden, the demonic dragon roared rumblingly as it started to descend from 10,000 meters in the sky. The majestic man sitting on the demonic dragon's neck was surprised. He knitted his beautiful eyebrows and scooped down to observe the situation on the ground. At first glance, he saw the black iron war devil. Ah! The man was terrified and emotional. Astonishment flooded his deep pupils as he muttered to himself, using the dark chi to quench the antiquity time fighting puppet war devil is the technique that only the demon clan's precursors know. Strange. Have our clan's precursors come back from the foreign land? He mumbled, then let the demonic dragon hover in the sky so he could watch the situation down there. Behind the demonic dragon were thousands of demonic beasts of the demon area, lining up neatly. Each demonic beast carried a hotshot of the demon clan, who had at least the Sky Realm cultivation base. Among them, there were more than 10 warriors at the Spirit Realm, and 2 more true God Realm experts. The formation of the demonic beasts of the demon area maintained a distance from the demonic dragon that led them. When they found the demonic dragon had stopped, several thousand demonic beasts had halted silently behind it. A heavy pressure like a mountain diffused from the hotshots of the demon clan. Why has Master Bao Ao stopped here? Sitting on a dragon beast of the demon area was a tall and muscular scarred man. He was almost 3 meters tall, and a python wound around his waist. He had just spoken loudly to the others. As he had the black scale armor on his body, people could recognize that he was the member of the Black Scale clan. His aura was brutal and murderous. Certainly, Master Bao Ao has found something, said an elegant woman. She was wearing male costumes, holding a pretty maid of the Night Charming race in her lap. They were riding a level 8 7-headed black brilliance bird. She laughed and then talked to the muscular man next to her. Guda Sai, later on when we arrive at the Ghostmark clan, if you see the young girls of the Ghostmark clan, help me ask if they sell them, okay? While the woman was talking, a thorny tail extended under her long white dress. Bo Ruo, we come to the Ghostmark clan to discuss how to uproot the humans. The muscular man of the Black Scale clan was called Guda Sai. Scars on his face twisted like a bunch of worms as he grinned fiendishly. Young maids of the human race have the softest body. They aren't as rough as our demon clan. I love them the most. You're disgusting. Bo Ruo glared at him begrudgingly. You butcher, you're wasting the world's treasures. If you see them, remember to let me taste first. Once I'm done with them, you can eat them. You are disgusting. Guda Sai snorted, his face disdainful. Well, the women you've touched are so dirty. If anyone eats them, he will puke out for the rest of his life. Get lost. Bo Ruo's voice was like an arrow shooting towards Guda Sai. Mother f***ka. Here she goes again. The tall man shouted indignantly. He jolted up to counter the attack, rubbing his fists and jumping up. Black scales rose on his body, making the sound like the wind blowing through pine tree forest, which had stirred up the energy of heaven and earth. More than 10 experts at the spirit realm stayed behind them. They were sitting neatly with a serious countenance. They seemed not to bother with the fight in front of them, but the beast they rode were moving away discreetly, as if they were afraid of getting involved. In the front of the formation, the handsome middle-aged man was standing on the 100-meter-long dragon, looking at the northern cold city under his feet. His gloomy pupils gradually rested on Shiyang. A tiny beam of surprise sparkled deep inside his pupils. He looked at the 5 grey shadows, couldn't help but hold his forehead and groan. He let out a light shout as if he were insane. The one who controls the 5 great negative emotions, the antiquity demogon. Damn it. What's going on? Bao Aoge, that kid has space power in his sea of consciousness. The demonic dragon sent him its thought. Space power? The middle-aged man was startled. Then he revealed his astonishment. Is it? The great change that has divided spaces is because of this kid. Suddenly, the man laughed out loud. Interesting. I didn't expect to see the ringleader this time. It's interesting indeed. Then, he jumped off the demonic dragon, deliberately walking in the void towards the man in the corner of the northern cold city with a smiling face. Chapter 611, The Ancient Bao Family. Chapter 611, The Ancient Bao Family. Shi Yang sat emotionlessly as magical and mysterious images crossed his head as fast as lightning. Most of them were about the great fierce wars. During the wars, Shi Yang saw the ancient clans including the Dark Spirit clan, the Ghostmark clan, and the Giant clan. Members of these alien clans projected in the images all had earth-shaking power. They could smash an entire mountain with only one strike, leaving a 100-meter deep ditch on the ground. However, those images weren't continual. It was hard to reorder them precisely. In his head, every image came with the unceasingly rumbling thunder. Closing his eyes, Shi Yang tried to arrange some images, but he found that it was too difficult to do that. He couldn't restore their original sequence. During this process, it seemed some seal had been unlocked in this world. Some scattered memoirs in heaven and earth had turned into flows of ancient soul fluctuation, pouring in him. Gradually, a vague mark had formed at his glabella. 5 pentagonal blood clouds appeared. The 5 clusters of blood-red cloud were like an ancient mark or some family crest imprinted at his glabella. Blood halo bloomed gloriously, giving people a feeling of something both beautiful and savage. He didn't know what was happening to him. Shi Yang still sat neatly on the ground as he was watching some magical images detaching from his head and poured into the mark. After receiving some images, the ancient mark got clearer and more complete. This gave him a new strange aura. A middle-aged man walked toward him with hands clasping behind his back. He stopped around 100 meters away from Shi Yang, smiling until his eyes squinted. The war devil suddenly reacted. From deep inside its empty pear, a black, evil light shot out, furious as if it could swallow the bright light. The 5 gray shadows that were winding around him all reacted. They buzzed, sending their soul fluctuations as they were anxious, placing their attention on that middle-aged man. That strange middle-aged man also had a triangle mark on his forehead, which became clearer at this moment. Ha ha. Ha ha. Interesting, indeed, so interesting, Bao Ao mumbled to himself. The smile on his face became warmer. He felt happier and even more excited, rubbing his hands like a child seeing the toy he had been yearning for. The middle-aged man couldn't control his joy. The ice-cold flame and the earth flame flew on Shi Yang's left and right shoulders. Their flames were flickering indefinitely, they couldn't relax. 3 fierce flows of soul fluctuation stormed into the deep place inside Shi Yang's soul. His host soul trembled violently then woke up. Some magical images in his head flew and merged into the strange blood cloud on his glabella. He couldn't reorder them, so he felt a little bit regret. He didn't know he had a mysterious mark on his forehead now. Sinking in the loss, he shook his head then opened his eyes, shouting using his soul. What are you doing? The inner world 5 devils, the earth flame, and the ice-cold flame sent him their thoughts rapidly together with the alarming fluctuation. Shi Yang shuddered. He utterly woke up now. His pupils shrank as his aura bloomed out fiercely. He glared at the middle-aged man standing opposite to him. Pores in his entire body opened. Flows of negative energy that looked like real pallid tentacles emerged from his pores and acupuncture points. Shi Yang seemed to turn into a strange demon with many pale tentacles covering his body. Each tentacle was around 2 meters long, with the brutal negative energy. They were moving like octopus tentacles around him. He immediately knew that his negative energy had condensed to the ultimate level, turning from the air form to a more solid form. His power was increasing robustly. Each tentacle connected to one of his acupuncture points. 720 tentacles were spreading all over his body, which gave him a magical feeling. It seemed these tentacles were parts of his body, carrying the strange, mysterious power. This was the performance of the Rampage Upanishads, which had promoted the negative energy of his entire body. When he calmed down his mind, the tentacles shrank and retreated into his acupuncture points, returning to the pure negative energy. At the same time, the sea of consciousness in his brain was shaken. Shi Yang sensed and found that his essence Qi ancient tree had grown twice. His eyes sparkled. Abruptly, he knew that he had entered the second sky of spirit realm from the first sky of spirit realm unknowingly. His sea of consciousness expanded, and his soul was finer. Together with his mind and spirit, they had a magical union. His flesh and blood also had a mighty strength. Level up. Congratulations, little brother, Bao Ao smiled quietly. He strolled towards Shi Yang without caring about the gaze of the war devil, the ice-cold flame, and the earth flame. He looked quite casual and at ease. Shi Yang felt tense. The Sky Destroyer divine sword emerged from thin air and gradually appeared in his palm. Who are you? Shi Yang couldn't sense any kind of energy from that man. At the second sky of spirit realm, Shi Yang's soul consciousness couldn't sense the aura of the other. In his cognition, the man standing in front of him seemed not to exist. He had experienced this feeling when facing Yun Hao. He immediately knew that the one standing opposite to him was an existence at Yun Hao's level. He was even more dangerous than Yun Hao. Who am I? Bao Ao burst out laughing. He shook his head and then said, Seems you little brother hasn't received the inheritance yet. Yeah, we aren't hurried. Just take your time. Little brother, you will receive more memory seals. At that time, you can try to sense the wonderful connection between you and me. Shi Yang was stunned. He had no clue. He realized that he didn't understand the words that came out of the other's mouth. It seemed the other had known about him, but he couldn't sense that man's realm or anything else. Seeing Bao Ao walking towards him, Shi Yang tried his best to adjust the aura. Flows of pure essence qi grumblingly overflowed the Sky Destroyer divine sword in his hand. Don't be tense. I mean no harm. Bao Ao threw his arms into the air and laughed. His voice was soft that could comfort people. If I had bad intentions, well, even if there were 100 of you here, all of you would be dead. Shi Yang discolored. Well, I told you not to be tense. See, you're getting tense again, laughed Bao Ao. While he was talking, he arrived in front of Shi Yang. The man stopped while his deep dark eyes were scanning Shi Yang. He nodded and then smiled. I was just passing by, and saw you were breaking through your realm. I was suddenly interested in it, so I came to see. I don't have other intentions. Shi Yang didn't answer. He was trying to guess the other's identity. Warriors who had this realm weren't someone not famous in the divine great land. Perhaps he had the same realm as Yun Hao. Was he the master of the martial spirit palace, perhaps? The master of the spirit treasure sect? Little brother, this one is for you. Later on, if you can't live with humans anymore, come to me. Bao Ao patted his head as if he had just recalled something. His slender index finger touched his forehead. The strange triangle mark suddenly glowed, as a dark gold token flew out from his mark. That small token wasn't made of gold or jade. It was a whole intact plaque covered in ancient symbols. The simple curves on the token interlinked, giving people a strange but evil feeling. That small token had a triangular shape, similar to the mark on that man's forehead. However, it was a real token. This token looked like it had a life. It didn't wait for Shi Yang to receive it, moving directly to his forehead. However, that small token trembled as if it were wiped away right before it could touch the mark on Shi Yang's glabella. The smile on Bao Ao's face widened as if he had predicted the event before. He laughed and then touched the small token in the air. Afterward, the token quit entering the mark on Shi Yang's forehead, but stuck on his neck, just like a leech clutching on the skin under his right ear. A triangle mark glowed, sparkling along with Shi Yang's changing energy. When Shi Yang gathered himself together again and didn't urge his power, the mark dimmed and faded out, as though it had sunk into his skin. A cold feeling of cold jade spread from his neck. Shi Yang discolored. He was more frightened. What have you done to me? Shi Yang released his soul consciousness to sense. Right when he touched the token, the energy in the token had stirred it up. Shi Yang couldn't see the situation inside the small token or what kind of restraint it was. Shi Yang was distraught. A token was integrated into his body. He felt that he was enslaved already. This feeling irritated him a lot. However, he didn't dare to provoke the other. Even though that middle-aged man didn't reveal any dangerous intention, Shi Yang had a premonition that if that man wanted his life, he couldn't do anything to resist. Bao Ao laughed while watching his reaction. It seemed he found it interesting to watch Shi Yang in panic. Don't be scared. Haha. I just want good things for you. You'll get it later. Bao Ao contemplated for a while and then pointed at Shi Yang's forehead, reminding him. Be careful. You'd better not let anyone else see this mark, especially the human experts. Haha, or else, you will become the common enemy of the entire humanity. Yeah. That's it. You should deal with it. If you can't live with humans anymore, remember to find me. I am Bao Ao. If you want to find me, you just need to put your soul thought into that token. I'll get it immediately. Bao Ao smiled, waving his hand frankly. Do your best. After that, Bao Ao slowly ascended into the air. Under Shi Yang's attentive look, he walked towards the demonic dragon hovering thousands of meters in the void. Humanity, Shi Yang was suddenly struck with fear. He shouted, Are you pagan? I'm from the demon clan. Bao Ao from the ancient Bao family. Each family with the name ancient has at least 100,000 years of inheritance. Bao Ao beamed a faint smile as he sat on the demonic dragon and left with a big laughter. When Bao Ao started to move, all the terrifying demonic beasts of the demon area behind him slowly appeared from the clouds. This great formation was moving towards the shady firmament old mound. Shi Yang could vaguely see the fearful hotshots with different appearance of the demon clan riding those giant demonic beasts. They were all looking at him with astonishment. Shi Yang was stupefied like a wooden rooster, his body cold. Chapter 612, Ancient Mark. Chapter 612, Ancient Mark. After Bao Ao had left the northern cold city and got back to his dragon, the two true God realm experts of the demon clan Gudasai and Bo Ruo walked to him with suspicions. Master Bao Ao, who is that kid? He's just a human. Why didn't you kill him? Gudasai felt puzzled. Bo Ruo's beautiful eyes sparkled. Haha, he has the bloodline of our demon clan. He's the one who has received the inheritance of the oldest family in our demon clan. Bao Ao beamed a faint smile. That kid's really interesting. When he grows up, he'll be really dangerous. If his inheritance awakens, human beings won't receive him anymore. Sooner or later, he will belong to our side. Why did he have the oldest inheritance of the demonic clan? Gudasai was surprised. Members of the human clan have their blood mixed with many other clans. This isn't a surprise. Bao Ao was patient to explain. If it weren't because of that, this race wouldn't have occupied this continent for so many years. The bloodline of the human clan is the worst. But this clan has the ability to adapt well to other races. Their bloodline can blend with almost every other race. Through this kind of breeding, this race could develop further. Isn't it our purpose to kill them all? Bo Ruo chuckled. Even if their bloodline is mixed, their power is still much less than ours. Many martial techniques and power Upanishads are lost. Don't underestimate them. Bao Ao was serious, his face grim. In the war that year, if we hadn't underestimated them, we wouldn't have had such a great defeat. This race has a tremendous adaptive faculty. As long as we give them time to cultivate, they can burst out their energy, which can terrify everybody. Gudasai and Bo Ruo listened to him, but their faces were still disdainful. Apparently, they didn't keep Bao Ao's words in their minds. Bao Ao sighed in his heart, not wanting to talk more. He also knew that the human clan was weaker. Otherwise, they couldn't be swept away shortly like that. Now they could only try to retreat their heads and hold the last breath. Let's go. We should get to the shady firmament old mound first. We need to check if we can bring more members out of there. Sigh, it's been so many years. Actually, the survivors of our clan aren't many. We just have to try our best. Gudasai and Ba Ruo were also emotional. They didn't talk more, and just continued their journey. Shi Yang looked at the herd of demon area's demonic beasts gliding above his head. He felt as cold as ice. The power this clan showed off at this moment was enough to destroy any of the 7 ancient factions in the divine Great Land. Even if the radiant god cult and the pure land joined hands, being destroyed was their only final result. The real competence of the demon clan shouldn't be that simple. Besides the demon clan, the divine great land now had the Ghostmark clan, the dark spirit clan, the corpse clan, the dark clan, and the monster clan. It wasn't easy for them to survive until this moment. Once they could fully restore their power, it wasn't something the human clan could resist. Shi Yang suddenly had the premonition that the humanity's apocalypse was about to come. Touching the mark on his neck, Shi Yang felt distressed. He couldn't erase it. He had unknowingly received a mark on his body, which gave him an irritated feeling, making him nervous. He didn't know whether the man called Bao Ao could lock him in some corner using this mark, or if he could bring him to death at any minute. It was like a person who had gotten the seed of death in his body. When his opponent wanted him to die, he just needed to flicker his thought, and Shi Yang would die a tragic death. As he was restrained, a devil barrier would arise in his heart, which would affect his cultivation later. This could always scare his spirit and mind, and his level-up process would be hindered from now on. The cold energy moved in his palm, as an ice mirror emerged. Glaring at the mirror, he immediately saw the blood could mark on his glabella. The mark was shimmering with blood halo, giving him a brutal, bloody aura. This was an ancient mark, the mark that only the oldest family of the demon clan could have. The mark was the sign that someone belonged to a family. Through this mark, they could receive the inheritance of the family. He didn't need anybody to remind him to know that the blood vein ring and his transformation in the blood pond related to a strong expert of the ancient demon clan in the antiquity time. I must erase this mark. He took a deep breath, then sit down neatly, trying to use different methods to wipe out the mark at his glabella. After a long time, he quit helplessly. That mark had become part of his soul. No matter what he did, he couldn't wipe it away. He had even cut off the skin on his forehead. When the immortal martial spirit restored his skin, the mark was still there visibly. He had tried continually, and he understood that this mark wouldn't fade away shortly. Begrudgingly, he could only wear a black band on his head to cover the mark. The ancient mark brought the inheritance of an ancient family of the demon clan. This meant he was half demon. All of a sudden, he felt puzzled, not knowing where he was heading. He was hesitant, and didn't know whether he should go to the martial spirit palace or not. Shi Yang frowned, thinking about his family and friends in the Shi family and the Yang family. Everything he had experienced flashed once again in his head. Shi Jian, who had always protected him. The Yang family's hope. And Xia Xinyang. Gradually, his eyes became determined. His uneasy spirit was calibrated as he adjusted his direction one more time. Leaving the mark on his neck aside, Shi Yang pondered and restarted his journey, walking towards the martial spirit palace. However, he was more careful, as he intended to avoid the areas where the pagans could gather. His journey was safe this time. 10 days had passed as fast as lightning. Finally, Shi Yang arrived at the martial spirit palace's territory. Similar to the radiant god cult and the spirit treasure sect, the martial spirit palace's land was filled with the heavy pressure of death. Many civil kingdoms had depended on the martial spirit palace. Now, their cities were all empty. Shi Yang released his soul consciousness to check, but he couldn't detect any living fluctuations. However, he was glad that he didn't see many terrifying scenes in the territory of the martial spirit palace. As he had watched so many tragic scenes, he couldn't help but curse. As the martial spirit palace had soon prepared, they had gathered the members of human clan everywhere in the entire territory and hid in some corner to survive. After 2 days, he arrived at the famous perpetual night forest of the divine great land. The perpetual night forest was situated in the martial spirit palaces. Big trees towered the ground, some of them as big as a mountain, which had been growing for 10,000 years. The reason why this forest was called perpetual night was because of the dense ancient trees here. Their branches were too thick, so they blocked the sunlight from the sky. This forest didn't receive the sunlight year-round, and it always looked as dark as night. Currently, the sun, moon, and stars had all appeared in the sky of the divine great land, and there was no night anymore. Regions in the continent were always illuminated. Only the perpetual night forest remained in its original state. All the natural light was blocked. Even the sun and the moon in the sky couldn't fill this forest with light. Walking through the perpetual night forest and looking at the thick leaves and branches in above his head, Shi Yang got to know the meaning of the forest's name. Indeed, there was no light in this forest. The entire place was gloomy. Only some tiny beams of strong sunlight could reach the ground. But it was very scarce. In this wet and dark forest, there were many translucent streams and lakes. Fishes there looked fat and delicious. Also, the air in the forest was fresh, which could reinvigorate people. In his knowledge, the perpetual night forest was the largest area in the martial spirit palace's territory. It was situated on an area of millions of miles squared. It would take years to cross through this forest. Many mysteries hid inside this forest. People could see the ruins of ancient temples and graves here and there in the forest. Many experts, who decided to have a secluded life, had chosen to stay in the perpetual night forest, which had abundant cultivating materials' spiritual aura. Living in this forest, they didn't need to worry about the cultivating materials. After one day and one night of walking in the perpetual night forest, Shi Yang hadn't sensed any aura of living creatures. He hadn't met any human or beast. A forest should have a vibrant atmosphere, but the ambience here was heavy, which made people feel uncomfortable. All of a sudden, he smelled the scent of blood. As his thought flickered, his body moved swiftly like an electric current. Instantly, he had crossed 1,000 meters forward and then halted by a pool. The pool wasn't big, towered by many 100-meter-tall ancient trees. Dead bodies scattered around the pool. The clean pool water was now dyed red by the blood. Shi Yang's face became cold and dark. The dead bodies by the pool were the members of the demonic Sound clan and the Winged clan. These two clans had submitted to him, deeming him their master. At least 100 pagans were slaughtered. Moreover, their bodies were torn into pieces. The opponent's action was savagely brutal. He suddenly recalled something terrible. How had the demonic Sound clan and the Winged clan been? Returning to the past, perhaps the demonic Sound clan and the Winged clan had been in the divine Great Land. However, after the great change of heaven and earth, alien races had depended on the Ghost Mark clan, the Dark Spirit clan, and the Demon clan to slaughter humans. Wherever they went through, they left people in miseries. Human clan should be filled with resentment. The demonic Sound clan and the Winged clan should be safe if they went with the other alien tribes. However, they were with the Yang family. Members of the Yang family had used the teleportation formation to go to the northern Gem Mountain in the Radiant God cult. Had Yun Hao, the master of the Radiant God cult, accepted them? At the moment the alien tribes were massacring humans, would the demonic Sound clan and the Winged clan be the targets to vent out their anger? Although Yun Hao could give him face to not attack them, how about the others? Would the Pure Land, the Spirit Treasure Sect, and the Martial Spirit Palace leave them alone? The demonic Sound clan and the Winged clan had become the pagans that could join any side. In the eyes of the alien clans, they were betrayers. To humanity, they were the aliens who deserved death. Arriving at this thought, Shi Yang felt chilled. He could almost confirm that the demonic Sound clan and the Winged clan on his side had become the most pathetic force in the divine Great Land. Both the alien tribes and the mankind would aim at them. His face darkened. He pressed down the worries in his heart and continued to move through the perpetual night forest. It had been 3 days, and he had met many places where dead bodies piled up. Without a single exception, they were all the members of the demonic Sound clan and the Winged clan. Di Shan and Yi Tian Mo should have met a big purge. Perhaps, even Di Shan and Yi Tian Mo got killed. The realm of Di Shan's group wasn't bad in the Endless Sea, but in this divine Great Land, compared to the true God realm experts like Yun Hao, they were nothing. Shi Yang's face became darker. He couldn't wash away the shame in his heart. This was the first time he had the thought of being responsible for a race. He had to save them. Chapter 613, Blood Animosity. Chapter 613, Blood Animosity. The perpetual night forest was a spacious area several million miles squared. This place was shady year-around. Demonic beasts swaggered here and there. After several days of walking in the forest, Shi Yang found more dead bodies of the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan. Moreover, he saw many signs of deaths, which belonged to the Yang family's warriors. Along the way, his heart sank deeper as he suffered a big sorrow. Shi Yang had thought that he didn't need to care about the great change of the Grace mainland, and he just needed to protect his family, saving them from harm. But now he knew how funny his idea was. The whole continent was sinking in a great tsunami. Pagans were slaughtering and robbing everywhere. Who was lucky enough to escape this calamity? All of a sudden, he felt a strong soul fluctuation in his sea of consciousness. Shi Yang accelerated, dashing at his max speed toward the east. Boom! His energy exploded everywhere. On his way, all the flora was crushed. Level 3 and Level 4 demonic beasts along his way scattered disorderly when they sensed his intimidating aura. Shi Yang halted. 3 Level 7 demonic beasts were surrounding 10 members of the Dark Devil clan by a swamp. The leader of this group had only the third sky of Nirvana realm. He was wounded badly. Blood was gushing out from one of his arms. The 3 Level 7 beasts included a one-horned rhino, a jasper spider, and an 8-legged blue-blood frog. They all had intellect with quick moves. This group of 10 clansmen of the Dark Devil clan couldn't resist anymore, obviously. If no one helped them, they would perish soon. Yi Mu paled, looking at his fellows falling one by one. Hatred overflowed his heart. He regretted that his competence wasn't enough to take revenge for his fellows. Looking at the dismembered bodies, he was about to get crazy. The jasper spider looked like a round object. Its legs sparkled with a cold, blue light. Every time they stomped on the ground, they dug a deep hole. The jasper spider was like an experienced hunter. It wasn't hurried as it was slowly weaving a web. This arachnid wanted to capture Yi Mu's group alive and then eat their brains little by little. This beast was smart. It knew that the human brain tasted best when they were alive, so it didn't rush. First, it would drain Yi Mu's group, then it could slowly enjoy the fine food. When the energy of heaven and earth changed, demonic beasts in the Grace mainland seemed to gain intellect as well. The genuine beasts were now all cunning. Apparently, they formed the so-called monster clan. When the beasts reached level 7, not only their wisdom increased, but they also gained some magical cultivating techniques of the monster clan. This would enhance their power on a massive scale. Vaguely, they had become the official members of the monster clan. Swoosh! Shi Yang's figure halted in between the 3 beasts while a murderous aura diffused from him. Demonic beasts at level 7 all had wisdom. They showed that they were scared of Shi Yang's imposing aura when they just sensed it. The beasts retreated quickly. Wee hoo hoo. These beasts had used the strange whistling to communicate. 3 beasts scattered, moving to 3 different directions as they wanted to flee away from this man as far as possible. Young Master Yang. Yi Mu's eyes seemed to rupture, sparkling with a strange light as he couldn't help but shout. This man was Yi Tianmo's nephew, so he had met Shi Yang several times. At the most critical time, he almost burst into tears on seeing Shi Yang. Shi Yang's countenance was cold. He didn't say anything. His mind flickered as he released the war devil, assigning it to kill. The war devil was like a steel and iron war chariot, barging rumblingly and moving directly towards the jasper spider. The web the jasper spider had weaved was smashed. The war devil wildly stomped his 10,000 jun foot on the jasper spider. Its heavy foot pierced through the spider. The war devil turned around, dashing towards the other 2 beasts. Shi Yang didn't watch the battle. He came to Yi Mo, who was bleeding badly, took out a jade bottle and gave it to him. Swallow them. 3 pills for each of you. Sit down and restore yourself now. It was the great original chi pellet he had exchanged in the Spirit Potion Valley. It was considered a rare spiritual medicine in the divine Great Land to nurture the body and restore the warrior's spirit, mind, and soul. Tears lingered in Yi Mu's eyes. He didn't talk more, nodded, and swallowed 3 pills. Then, he handed the remaining pills to the other fellows. 13 members of the Dark Devil clan received 3 pills each. As Shi Yang had advised them, they sat down and started to adjust their bodies to recover their wounds. Shi Yang watched here and there. He found 5 bodies of the Dark Devil clan around 1,000 meters away from them. All were ripped apart and headless. The beasts must have eaten them. Shi Yang sighed in his heart, his face sad. He knew he was one step late. Bang bang bang. The sound of the war devils stomping arose not far from them. After 10 seconds, that noise stopped. Shi Yang knew the other 2 beasts were killed. Shortly, the war devil came back. Its armor covered its steel body perfectly, without a bloodstain. The war devil stopped next to him. There was no light in its empty eyes, as though it was a dead thing. Shi Yang also stood stupefied, waiting in silence while his heart was chilled. After 1 hour, Yi Mu had restored. He was the first one to wake up. He kneeled down in front of Shi Yang, choking with sobs. There are not more than 1/3 folks left in our clan. It's the same with the Winged clan. Since we've come to the divine Great Land, we have always been running. We hide everywhere. We just want to survive. Shi Yang's face was furious. He gritted his teeth and nodded. After all, what's happened? Where are Yi Tian Mo and the others? Our general and the others are also in the perpetual night forest. They are hiding. At this moment, they have cut the soul connection using a barrier to prevent stealth operation. Tears rolled down Yi Mu's face, his eyes bloodshot. The number of our members who died in the hands of the 7 ancient factions is more than the number that the beasts have killed. Young Master Yang, you have to take revenge for us. 7 ancient factions. A drop of dark red blood trickled from the corner of Shi Yang's mouth as if it was the tear of the devil in hell. He thundered, "What's happened after all? When we had just arrived in the divine Great Land, the Radiant God cult treated us not too badly. The cult master had come to the northern Gem Mountain to feast with the Yang family's head. However, not long after that, the alien tribes started their invasion. They massacred in every corner of the divine Great Land." Yi Mu was on his knees as he explained with a resentful tone. The 7 ancient factions couldn't resist the savage attack. They joined hands and moved to the general direction of the Martial Spirit Palace. We heard that the Martial Spirit Palace had a secret domain that they could get in and hide away from the pagan slaughter. At that time, we went with the disciples of the Radiant God cult. But when we arrived in the Martial Spirit Palace's territory, meeting up with the other factions of the 7 ancient factions, everything changed. Except for the Radiant God cult, the other 6 factions wanted to kill us all when they saw the Winged clan and our clan. Master Yun Hao of the Radiant God cult couldn't stop that. He couldn't help but let us detach from their formation. We had no choice but to come to the perpetual night forest to hide. Not long afterward, the other factions started to ambush and kill us. There are level 9 demonic beasts here. The other beasts also have intellect. They know how to besiege and kill us. In this place, both the beasts and humanity want to kill us. It's just been half a year, and we have already borne a significant loss. Where is the Yang family? Did they go with you guys? Shi Yang's countenance changed, asking coldly. They're here too. Tears filled Yi Mu's face. The Yang family's head is a good man. Right at the beginning, he had tried to protect us. Unfortunately, the Yang head isn't so strong in the divine Great Land. Currently, the Yang family stays with us in this perpetual night forest. But the 3 Gods sect and the Xia family, who had come to the divine Great Land with us, have officially become the members of the 7 ancient factions. When the secret domain opened, the head of the Yangs refused to go there. He brought a part of the Yang family and the Xia family to go with our clan and the Winged clan. Sigh. The head of the Yang family seems unable to endure it anymore. Many human hotshots who used to listen to the head of the Yangs wanted to kill us so that they could become an ally of the 7 ancient factions. Begrudgingly, the Yang family and we had to separate. We stay in 2 different places in the perpetual night forest to avoid unwanted events. Yi Mu was sorrowful, telling Shi Yang the events they had been through since they had arrived in the divine Great Land. After he had finished narrating, Shi Yang's aura burst out. With a ruthless face, he said gloomily. So that's how it is. Shi Yang wasn't so surprised. Since he had found the dead bodies of the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan, He could guess the situation. However, when he heard the stories from Yi Mu, he still got enraged. Now, are they alive? Are any one of them, I mean the leaders, dead? Trying to press down his anger, Shi Yang took several deep breaths to calm himself. He was anxious that the result he was about to hear could make him crazy. Ya Meng. General Yi Meng is dead. One of the Shura kings of the Yang family is dead too. His name was Li Mu. Besides them, some other strong experts were killed, sobbed Yi Mu. Shi Yang's face became more ruthless and darker. Who killed them? The Heaven Temple's disciple had killed Ya Meng. Li Mu died in the hands of an elder of the Pure Land. Among the 7 ancient factions, besides Master Yun Hao of the Radiant God Cult, the other leaders don't ban their disciples from killing us. Oh yeah, there's a small force called the Ice Emperor City. During the battle, they always showed mercy. They helped many members of us survive, explained Yi Mu. Shi Yang was surprised. He had never expected that the 4 women of the Ice Emperor would help him at the most critical moment when humans hated the alien tribes a lot. It wasn't easy for them to do so. His chilled heart got warmer a little bit when he heard this story. Chapter 614, Change. Chapter 614, Change. Shady Firmament Old Mound. After 1 year, under the construction of the Ghost Mark clan, the vast area of countless gloomy graveyards became more colorful. A subterranean place should be dark and wet, but this area had many beautiful, exquisite buildings and palaces. These structures were covered with strange, evil symbols, which seemed like crawling worms. These arrays were mysterious and complicated. Those buildings weren't exceptionally tall. The tallest one was around dozens of meters tall at the most. However, they were made of a strange material that looked like cold, black iron, giving people a cold and sinister feeling. These buildings were arranged as if they followed some meaning in the world, which would give them some magical effects. Far from the buildings and palaces, there laid ruins of tombs. It seemed the barriers in those tombs had been removed. There was no energy fluctuation anymore. The 2 sages of the Ghost Mark clan were standing on a sacrificial altar where thick mysterious chi hovered. They were performing an ancient ritual to offer sacrifice. Thousands of dead human bodies laid around the altar. Yin chi was moving everywhere. Flows of grey energy in air form exuded from the human corpses, pouring into the sacrificial altar. There was a sharp snow-white thorny pole on the altar. The tip of the thorn radiated dazzlingly, releasing evil cold chi as if it were connecting something. Not far from there, Bao Ao and the group of the Demon Clan's experts were standing and watching the event. They were looking attentively towards the sacrificial altar. Among the great alien tribes, the Ghost Mark clan had the most profound understanding of soul power. The altar they had built had the same function. It could cross space and collect the souls from the foreign lands, or make a connection with the outer areas. The 2 sages of the Ghost Mark clan had waited until the mysterious chi thickly gathering around the altar reached a certain degree to throw the yin-written charm scripture out, using it as the fountain of power to activate the sacrificial altar. A flow of gloomy grey mist exuded from the altar. Precious gems sparkled in the mist, reflecting strange and evil rays. Clouds with the shape of souls gradually condensed in the mist. They couldn't see the real appearance, but the basic shapes. Anyway, it was enough to tell what creatures they were. Soul-shaped clouds changed mysteriously. Shortly, they floated from the altar to hundreds of meters high in the sky, as feeble soul fluctuations flowed out. The 3 experts of the Demon Clan, Bao Ao, Bo Ruo, and Guda Sai watched those drifting clouds, their faces happy. They hurried to use their souls to capture them. As they were all true God Realm warriors, and their God soul had been created. When they flickered their souls, the fierce soul fluctuations were too much to bear. Most of the clansmen of the Ghost Mark clan couldn't endure, so they had to back off. Soul fluctuations expanding in the void became more powerful. Those drifting soul-shaped clouds were moving back and forth, gradually making a marvelous connection with the god souls of Bao Ao's group of 3. Bao Ao and the other 2 sat down neatly, closing their eyes. They didn't say anything. It seemed they were using the god soul to communicate. The 2 sages of the Ghost Mark clan, who were controlling the sacrificial altar, looked tense and anxious. The ash-grey energy from the human corpses was drained quickly. Around 1 hour later, the grey energy had run out completely. The 2 sages of the Ghostmark clan watched the situation. They didn't hesitate taking back the yin written charm scripture. The robust power pouring into the altar was retrieved. Bao Ao's team was sensing with their eyes closed. Abruptly, they awakened, their countenance annoyed. Master Bao Ao, it isn't that we didn't want to help you. Honestly, we didn't have enough energy. Comoros, the sage of the Ghostmark clan, smiled begrudgingly as he was rubbing his hands continually. If you can find the souls of third sky of spirit realm warriors to be the sacrifice, this altar can last longer. At this moment, we can't do more. When Bao Ao faced Shi Yang, his temperament like warm weather. But at this moment, when he was talking to Comoros, a second sky of true god realm, he was sinister and brutal. His eyes seemed to contain endless wicked intents. Comoros, the price we've paid isn't small. That's how you get things done. Comoros beamed a forced smile, continually begging. Master Bao Ao, please give us more time. In 3 months max, we will satisfy you. 3 months later, our sacrificial altar could help you guys and the Antiquity Demogon form a soul connection. Bao Ao's pupils shrank, and he kept silent for a while. Comoros smiled miserably, continually ensuring him. 1 month. We'll give you only 1 month. Bao Ao's brutal aura ceased. He became as calm as a tranquil stream. 1 month later, if you can't satisfy us, the agreement we have will be null and void. At that time, you should spit out what we've given you. Understand? Comoros nodded continuously, not daring to explain more as he agreed immediately. All right. 1 month. 1 month later, I'm sure you can form the soul connection with the Antiquity Demogon. Good, Bao Ao laughed contentedly. He stood up and said faintly, I've wasted a lot of time. So, don't test my limit. Remember, you have only 1 month. Don't worry. Right after you leave, I'm going to the Martial Spirit Palaces area. Comoros patted his chest affirmatively. Bao Ao nodded approvingly. Oh yeah, the kid named Shi Yang you've met, I want to keep him for a reason. If you meet him, don't touch him. Or else, don't blame me for being impolite. A human, frowned Comoros. Yeah. Although I don't know what Master Bao Ao keeps him for, as you've advised, I will follow you. I'm waiting for your good news. Bao Ao took Bo Ruo and Guda Sai, then left. After they had got out of the shady firmament old mound to the bleak plain, Bao Ao knitted his brows and talked to Bo Ruo and Guda Sai. You guys go to the Endless Sea, the 3rd demon area and the 4th demon area. I think our fellows there have gotten out too. You guys get there and gather them. As our 2nd demon area has opened, the gates over there should have broken too. Remember to find the materials I want. We need to unlock the gate of the 1st demon area, not only to contact the Antiquity Demogon in there, but also to prepare sufficient materials to break the seal. Don't worry, we will gather them, laughed Guda Sai. There aren't many strong experts in the 3rd and the 4th demon areas. So, it's impossible to have an ancient family there. Our ancient Bao family can unite the fellows there this time for sure. You should hurry. The ancient Jie family is about to come. If we let them open the 1st demon area first, all of our efforts will be wasted. Bao Ao snorted. When he mentioned the ancient Jie family, he seemed annoyed. Got it. Ancient corpse tomb. There were many gravestones scattering on a moor, each having a dark entrance leading to the palace underground. According to the legends, the ancient corpse tomb was a strange land that existed from the antiquity time. To have a slot in the ancient corpse tomb, the owner of the tomb should be formidable. Under the headstone, it was another world. People said that the biggest tomb even had a hidden space as big as an entire city. At a gravestone that had many strange drawings of the Corpse Clan, Corpse Mount, Corpse Sea, and their people had arrived from the Endless Sea. Traveling through dozens thousand miles, they had finally made it. Corpse Mount, Corpse Sea, and their fellows stopped in front of that grand headstone, using their special etiquette to bow and their distinct language to call. After a while, marvelous soul waves spread out from the entrance of the gravestone. Corpse Mount and Corpse Sea shivered in thrill. They were both surprised and happy, jolting up from their slots as they took their people to enter that grave. The northern Gem Mountain. Cao Qiu Dao, Fan Xiong-yun, and their men still stayed in this place. They hid inside the mountain, not daring to walk out. Ear-splitting screams and screech often echoed from the nearby mountains. Sometimes, they heard the demonic beasts howling. All of them were more than enough to scare them out of their wits. Man Jiyu wanted to get out there and hunt the beasts for food, but Cao Qiu Dao stopped him with only one sentence. There are 2 level 8 beasts among the herd. Man Jiyu quit his idea instantly, staying still inside the mountain. Would that kid Shi Yang dump us here? If so, staying dully here isn't different from finding a way to death, right? Fan Xiong-yun looked at the teleportation formation in front of her, eating some fruits with her distressed mood. Do you have any better ideas? Cao Qiu Dao said dispiritedly, throwing her a glare. If you have a better idea, I'll follow you. As long as you can save everybody, whatever it is, we'll follow you. Just tell us what to do. Fan Xiong-yun was bewildered. Later on, she said feebly, I know nothing about the divine great land. Then, it won't work, Cao Qiu Dao harumphed. I hear Shi Yang said that the Radiant God cult has true God Realm warriors, but now they are also in peril. What should we do? Fan Xiong-yun didn't talk more. Just wait then. At this moment, it's the most precise solution. If you don't have any business to do, don't go out. If our location is disclosed, calamity will fall on us. Cao Qiu Dao sighed, not knowing what to do. All of them felt dispirited as they smiled miserably. Staying in this situation without a single hope, they didn't know when it would end. It's over there. That's all that the 2 clans have now. Master Yang, I hope you can help us survive. Yimu led the way to an extremely luxuriant foliage area. He talked to Shi Yang and pointed to a forest that had no leaks at all. Shi Yang nodded quietly. Don't worry. As long as I'm alive, I will arrange things properly. Young Master Yang, please get in. Yimu smiled begrudgingly. The Grand General should know of your arrival by now. They have opened the gate of the barrier. We can get it now. Yeah, Shi Yang was emotional. Somehow, he didn't dare to step in as he didn't know how sorrowful the situation would be behind this barrier. Master. Even when he hadn't got in, the sad voices of Yi Tianmo and Kaba greeted him. Chapter 6:15, I have something to say. Chapter 6:15, I have something to say. It was a clear flat land with hundreds of plain rooms, surrounded by luxuriant ancient trees. Yi Tianmo, Kaba, and many clansmen of the Dark Devil clan were as pale as wax. Obviously, they had suffered from malnutrition. Their aura were also feeble. Di Shan and Yu Ruo stayed with the Winged Clan's members in another side. They had built some small tree houses. All of them looked exhausted. After Shi Yang arrived, scanning through this area, he couldn't help but sigh, shaking his head begrudgingly. He knew their lives were filled with struggles. Alien tribes deemed them as betrayers while the human clan considered them as aliens. The Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan had fallen into a perilous situation like they had never before. They could see neither hopes nor future as they were counting every day of their survival. Both the Monster clan in the Perpetual Night Forest and the hotshots of the Human clan sneaking out from the secret domain made them their targets. They often swept the clansmen nearby. Begrudgingly, Yi Tianmo and Kaba had to use the Soul Class barrier to barricade this area to prevent the warriors from using the Soul Consciousness to detect them. However, the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan had never been rich. They didn't have enough energy to maintain this soul barrier for a long time. Yi Tianmo and Kaba had to pay a big price, which was to consume their soul consciousness to maintain the soul barrier. That's why they looked so exhausted. Di Shan and Yu Ruo came when they heard of Shi Yang's arrival. They also looked distressed. Yu Ruo was pallid, as if she had some wounds. The 4 leaders of the 2 clans kept silent. They kneeled down in front of him, looking at him with great expectation. How are you? Shi Yang kept quiet for a while. His face was calm like water. Nothing much. I got a minor wound. I will be all right after a while of recovering. Master, don't worry about me. Yu Ruo smiled gingerly as her beautiful face didn't have her usual elegant demeanor. Some elders of the martial spirit palace hurt her. If we hadn't run on time, perhaps, we couldn't have saved her life. Wicked resentment sparked deep in Di Shan's eyes. The warriors of the 7 ancient factions sometimes come out of the secret domain to chase and kill us. Without the soul barrier Yi and Bag arranged, we wouldn't have made it until now. Yi Mu had told Shi Yang about the secret domain of the martial spirit palace, which also situated in the perpetual night forest. The hotshots of the 7 ancient factions had brought many elite members and hid inside the secret domain. Usually, they wouldn't disclose themselves. However, the 7 ancient factions had many people, and had a high demand for food and cultivating materials. Thus, they had to sneak out sometimes to hunt the beasts in the forest. Consequently, the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan often encountered dangers. I'll get justice for you guys. Shi Yang stayed quiet for a while and then spoke up all of a sudden. How many fellows do you have here? My clan has around 2,000. But the Winged clan is more pathetic. They have merely 1,000. If it continues this way, after half a year, our 2 clans will be over, said Yi Tianmo as he was scooping. Master, should we leave the perpetual night forest? Yu Ruo thinned her lips. The perpetual night forest has become a perilous place to live. Soon, it will become a great battlefield. We've been prepared to find a new place to stay. Shi Yang kept silent. Although the divine great land was vast, experts of the alien tribes were everywhere. It was hard to find a peaceful place. Although the perpetual night forest had dangerous factors, it was relatively safe. If he took the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan out of here, if they met any pagans along the way, Shi Yang had no way to protect them. Suddenly, he felt his realm and his power were really crappy at this moment. He wanted to protect them, but he didn't have the power to do so. At this moment, we should stay here. It's not safe out there, Shi Yang pondered and then said, I'll try my best. Yeah, I'm going to see the Yang family on the other side to discuss with them and see what we can do. Do we need to go with you, sir? Di Shan was upright, as sharp and cold as a sword taken out of its scabbard. He had reached the 3rd sky of spirit realm. After the change of heaven and earth, his cultivation base had been increasing rapidly. If nothing unexpected happened, he could break through the true God realm shortly. At that time, his power would be more tremendous. Life of the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan was strenuous. Perhaps because of this, their potential was more intimidating. Not only Di Shan, Yu Ruo, Di Tianmo, and Kaba had also reached the 2nd sky of spirit realm. And, it was their sole effort, without many supporting resources. If they had more cultivating materials, perhaps they would inherit the ancient Upanishad, which would boost their breakthrough speed faster. Compared to them, members of human clan couldn't have such support. The changed energy of heaven and earth in this continent didn't bring them many benefits. No need, Shi Yang shook his head. You guys just stay here. I'll be back shortly. Then, I will give you new directions. Staying here or leaving, we will discuss later. All right, the 4 nodded. Shi Yang knew the general direction of the Yang family. Leaving Yi Tianmo's place, he flew fast. After 1 day, he arrived at the destination. Members of the Yang family stayed in a vast forest with some small mountains and lakes. They didn't need to worry about water supply. Also, there were some lush spiritual herbs in the lake. Yang Tian Emperor had refused to take shelter in the secret domain. He had taken his family and the Shi family to stay here safely. Tang Yuan Nan of the 3 Gods sect was accepted by cult master Yun Hao of the Radiant God cult right when they arrived in the Divine Great Land. Currently, he was one of the new elders of the Radiant God cult. Yun Hao trusted him greatly. Xia Qing Hu and his Xia family's warriors had met the hotshots of the Pure Land in the perpetual night forest. After they knew Xia Xinyang had joined the Pure Land force, the Pure Land also received them. Lin Meng, the master of the Pure Land, gave Xia Xinyang face as she was taking care of the Xia family pretty well. After Xia Qing, who had met Xia Xinyang, he was joyful. Soon, they had joined the Pure Land and became a relatively strong force of the Pure Land. As Tang Yuan Nan and Xia Qing, who from the Endless Sea had a new shelter, they were satisfied with their current situation. When Yang Tian Emperor told Yun Hao that they wouldn't go to the secret domain, in fact, Tang Yuan Nan and Xia Qing who had advised him. However, Yang Tian Emperor was stubborn, and the other two had to leave him alone begrudgingly. The reasons why Yang Tian Emperor didn't want to go to the secret domain were because he didn't like the behavior of the 7 ancient factions, and he thought that the secret domain wasn't a safe place either. Anyway, not all the members of the Yang family agreed with him. The other warriors, who had followed the Yang family and addressed Yang Tian Emperor as their master, got to know the true God Realm warriors like Yun Hao, Lin Meng, and Nai Ruo after they arrived in the Divine Great Land. Since then, they thought their vision was widened. Under the aliens' invasion, their hearts cracked. They didn't consider Yang Tian Emperor their master anymore. When Yang Tian Emperor declared that he wanted to stay in the perpetual night forest, the 7 ancient factions had recruited the warriors who wanted to detach from the Yang family. At this moment, Yang Tian Emperor side had around 2,000 people, including the Shi family. However, there were many people among these 2,000 people who were discontented with Yang Tian Emperor's decision. They had asked him to not care about the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan anymore, and that he should kill them all. Those people were filled with hatred. Although the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan didn't do anything to them, because they were racist, they still hated them. Yang Tian Emperor tried his best to comfort them. He discreetly shared a part of the hundreds of years' accumulation, including essence qi crystals and food, with Yi Tianmo and Di Shan. His action made more people discontented. However, it could help the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan get over this struggling time and survive in the perpetual night forest. Shi Yang reached the place where the Yang family sheltered. Looking at the ordinary formation outside, his heart sighed as he somehow felt sorrowful. The Yang family was a superior force in the Endless Sea. Experts of other forces had to bow to them. At the same time, the barriers and formations in the Immortal Island were also powerful, which had been made little by little over hundreds of years. Their defending power shouldn't be bad. However, after they arrived in the Divine Great Land, compared to the other ancient factions, the Yang family wasn't worth mentioning. This defensive formation was made reluctantly due to the time limit and lack of cultivating materials. From his observation, he could see it was just a shell. Perhaps, it couldn't resist even a single strike of a true God Realm warrior. Walking to the lake, Shi Yang saw the first person he knew, Li Feng. She sat by the lake indifferently, her face dispirited. Sorrow stayed in her bright eyes. She was toying some small tree branches, throwing them into the lake. She didn't notice his arrival. From a distance, Shi Yang knew why she was sad. Shura King Li Mu was her only relative, and he was dead. Squeak. A window squeaked from the green stone house opposite to Li Feng. A man appeared behind the window, his face cold and grim. His eyes suddenly brightened as he was cheered up. He shouted, "Little Yang is back." Just like the spring thunder, people of the Yang family and the Shi family were cheerful as if they were celebrating the new year. They came from every corner, gathering at the lake. Each of them greeted Shi Yang. From a further distance, some warriors who depended on the Yang family and the Shi family were watching. Some of them felt happy, but the others had their faces darkened. Apparently, they weren't happy at all. The Yang family had protected the Dark Devil clan and the Winged clan because of Shi Yang. In the eyes of those who got fed up, Shi Yang was the reason they were kept away from the secret domain. They thought that without Shi Yang, perhaps they would have been in the secret domain deep inside this perpetual night forest, and befriended the 7 ancient factions, which would ensure their safety and their future. Shi Yang smiled brightly. He squinted as he was sensitive enough to see the part that was disgruntled. "I have something to say." His voice wasn't high, but it reverberated in every corner of the place. Not only the Yang family standing near the lake, but also the dark-faced warriors hiding afar were startled. Yang Tian Emperor frowned, but he didn't intervene Shi Yang. He listened attentively while raising his arm to get his people's attention. Chapter 616, Run Counter. Chapter 616, Run Counter. Hundreds of members of the Yang family and the Shi family were listening to Shi Yang by the lake. The Yangs and the Shis had accepted Shi Yang from the bottom of their hearts, especially the Shis from the quiet cloudland. They always supported him unconditionally. They deemed Shi Yang's words the truth to be followed. They all knew that without Shi Yang, they would have never come to the endless sea. They understood well that if they were still in the quiet Cloudland, they would have died already. Those people had watched Shi Yang's growth from a little boy without essence chi. After 10 years, he now had a new height each time they next saw him. All the members of the Shi family admired Shi Yang. In their eyes, Shi Yang was no doubt a wise god with unmeasured potential. His future would surely be brighter. Instinctively, they thought that they had to go with Shi Yang to have a better life. However, many warriors who had submitted to the Yang family didn't look at him with such admiration, especially the group of hotshots who had usually battled in the 4th demon area. In their eyes, Yang Tian Emperor was their sole leader. After they arrived in the divine Great Land, the warriors who always submitted to the stronger started to look down on Yang Tian Emperor. If the Yang family hadn't given them favors, perhaps they would have left already. However, it was enough to keep them stay until now. Great-grandpa, I think many people here want to take shelter in the secret domain together with the 7 ancient factions. That place is relatively safer, anyway. And the 7 ancient factions will be glad to accept them. Shi Yang wore an indifferent countenance. His eyes raked around the further area. He continued neither slow nor fast. Many of them have received the favors of the Yangs and the Shis. That's why they stay. However, their hearts aren't with us. Well, I think it's too bad to stay here, right? You guys should be like the other people who left to the secret domain to save their lives. You shouldn't stay here awaiting danger with us. Kid, what do you mean? A consecrator of the Yang at the 2nd sky of Sky Realm with a grey beard and a green robe asked coldly. Where we should stay, do we need you to provoke or mock us? Who are you? Shi Yang frowned. Leader of the 5 yakshas of the Yang family, Shen Lin. That old man snorted. He slightly rose his head, depending on his seniority to speak up again. Our 5 yakshas have been fighting in the 4th demon area. Before you arrived the Endless Sea, we had already been in the 4th demon area. Although we aren't the most entitled elders of the Yang family, what we have contributed to the Yang family isn't something you can ignore to scold us like that. Shi Yang didn't change his complexion. He was still nonchalant like water in the lake as he nodded. I've admired you guys for too long. The name of the 5 yakshas is like thunder in my ears. Besides the 3 great Shura kings, the 5 yakshas were part of the strong warriors of the Yang family. The 5 yakshas didn't work in the Endless Sea. However, they had an outstanding reputation in the 4th demon area. Many members of the demon clan in the 4th demon area were scared the T out of them when they heard the name of the 5 yakshas. They addressed them as the human butchers. Shen Lin was the leader of the 5 yakshas, with the 2nd sky of Sky Realm cultivation base. In the Yang family, he had a reputation and an important position. Even Yang Tian Emperor had to respect him. What are you yelling? No matter what the master says, we will follow him. But you, a kid who still needs his titties, do you think you are qualified to strut your stuff here? Shen Lin harumphed, ignoring Shi Yang's compliment. What decision we make, it has nothing to do with you. Kid, don't think that with your relationship with that 2 alien tribes, you can swing your arms in front of us. Harumph, if it's not because of the master, I'm not afraid to give you a lesson. As Shen Lin had spent his recent years in the 4th demon area, he didn't understand Shi Yang much. Although he had heard about the young man's operation in the Endless Sea, Shen Lin still thought that Shi Yang had faked his attainment of cultivation base and realm. He believed that all were just rumors. At this moment, in Shi Yang's eyes, he just needed to swing his arm to kill a 2nd sky of Sky Realm warrior. He didn't put that old man in his mind. However, he wouldn't do that. He knew, if he took action, it would chill many people, which would have no benefit for their issues now. What Shenlin said didn't please people's ears, but it was truly what many experts of the Yang family had in their heads. If he killed Shenlin, warriors who had submitted to the Yang's family would feel dejected. People who always thought of the Yang family would also have a different thought, and even Yang Tian Emperor couldn't calm down the situation then. Well, I'm not qualified to talk more. I just want to say that no one can predict the divine Greatland's situation now. And, it's not sure that the 7 ancient factions could preserve the inheritance flame of human clan. Shi Yang smiled with a calm look. Of course, if someone thinks that the Yangs can't protect him, and the Yangs aren't as strong as the 7 ancient factions, it's better to leave earlier. One day you stay, that's one more day you have to worry about. This won't be helpful to your cultivating path. Great-grandpa, I think you won't stop people from finding a better way for them, right? Shi Yang looked up to see Yang Tian Emperor across the lake. Yang Tian Emperor cracked a smile and then spoke slowly. I've told you guys, I will never hinder your career. If you think Yang Tian Emperor isn't qualified, you can leave at any minute. Master, the Yang family has given us favors. At the critical time of the family, we will never leave. Shenlin slightly bent his body, his face honest. The Yang family had taken care of us in the endless sea for a long time. We are the members of the Yang family. It's the same when we are in the divine Great Land. We swear on our death that we will follow the master. As long as the Yang family does not expel us, we will not leave. Many warriors who had submitted to the Yangs yelled and shouted. However, no one knew how honest they were. Yang Tian Emperor beamed a faint smile. He waved his hands to calm people down, then looked at Shi Yang with some deep ideas in his eyes. Little Yang, don't talk much. You've just arrived, and there are many things you don't know yet. Come, we need to talk. Harumph. Such a brat who doesn't know his lot but dares to babble here. Shenlin's face was dark and cold as he glared at Shi Yang. Shi Yang frowned. His mouth was stiff and solemn like a cold saber. He just nodded without saying anything else. He had received the soul thought from Yang Tian Emperor. Now, he knew that the situation here wasn't really similar to his assumptions. What he'd planned was now postponed. Gliding by the lake, Shi Yang walked to the stone pavilion of Yang Tian Emperor. Shi Jian, Shi Tai, and Yang Hai were with him. They all looked happy. Official experts of the Yang family like Yang Zhuo also stepped forward. Shenlin watched them quietly, his eyes dark and calm. He exchanged looks with the other Sky Realm warriors out there. They seemed to have another plan. It's not like what you've thought. After they had seated in the stone building, Yang Tian Emperor said after he let Shi Yang, Shi Jian, Shi Tai, Yang Hai, Yang Zhuo, and Yang Mu hug and greet each other. At present, we have 2,000 people here. However, at least half of them want to leave. Among this group, some people who have received favors from the Yangs are hesitant. However, a big part of them doesn't think the same. It isn't that they don't want to leave, they have some other plans. Ah! Shi Yang's visage changed. Some want to join the 7 ancient factions. But they know their starting point isn't strong enough. They want to make a better starting point. They want to take more people to join the 7 ancient factions. Perhaps, many of them have agreed already. The reason why they haven't left yet is that they want to take more people with them. Or, they want to collect more intelligence from our side. Yang Tian Emperor wore a smile, but his eyes were as cold as the blades. Shi Yang suddenly enlightened. As the divine Great Land had such a big calamity, the ancient factions had to bear a significant loss. So many disaster, nirvana, and sky realm warriors were killed. Their foundation was shaken, and their force wasn't strong enough. In the divine Great Land, the cradle of martial techniques, a major number of human experts were unharmed, but the number of low-realm warriors was decreasing rapidly. To the 7 ancient factions, they all valued the future as they understood well that the low-realm warriors would become their strong pillars shortly. Thus, the 7 ancient factions were trying their best to unite those small forces. Using the secret domain to entice them, which would give their organizations the new blood. Because of this reason, when Tang Yuan Nan and Xia Qing, who brought the 3 Gods sect and the Xia family to join the Radiant God cult and the Pure Land, they didn't meet any obstacles. Quite the contrary, They were well treated and greatly favored. In this current situation, the one who could bring more low-realm warriors to join the 7 ancient factions would always be welcomed. If someone could take the elite force of the Yang family, he would definitely become someone important that the 7 ancient factions had to favor. At that time, they could earn fame and a high position. As his mind flickered, Shi Yang got the picture. Gradually, he found the mistakes in his assumption. Great-grandpa, what are you going to do? Shi Yang pondered for a while and then said, keeping these cunning people here isn't useful at all. It could even shake the foundation of the Yang family. Many of them have brought victories to the Yang family. If we aim at them, we can accidentally chill the hearts of the ones who are loyal to us. It's really a tough matter. I have a plan that can make them leave on their own. Anyway, I think it's a bit risky, so I haven't carried out yet. Yang Tian Emperor smiled coldly. We can't kill them immediately. So, at first, we will push them then calculate the debts later. I was thinking about bringing the tremendous demonic beasts here to give them a false image that the Yang family will cease soon, which would make them leave. Under this circumstance, they won't have the face to get back to us again. However, it's too dangerous. I'm still hesitant. Anyway, you're back now. Shi Yang's eyes brightened. He cracked a smile. Great-grandpa, you do have a good idea. Those people soon had other thoughts. Perhaps, they were already the members of the 7 ancient factions now. If they saw the Yang family's severe situation, they wouldn't risk their lives to stay. Naturally, they would choose to leave discreetly. That way, they didn't need to cause a war or make the ones who had followed the Yangs wholeheartedly distressed. It was a good way to get rid of this malignant tumor. However, the premise was that the Yangs should have absolute confidence. In the critical time where people had to sacrifice, they needed to have the ability to maintain the power of the family. I've planned properly. As long as you can help me deal with a level 8 beast, we can carry this plan, smiled Yang Tian Emperor. Don't worry. Even there are 2 beasts, I can make them leave, said Shi Yang. Then we're absolutely safe. Chapter 617, Rupture. Chapter 617, Rupture. Sigma. Deep in the thick forest 100 li away from the Yang family's shelter, Shun Lin and one of the Yakshas, Dong Jin, were sitting upright. Almost 100 Earth Realm and Nirvana Realm warriors were surrounding them. They were forming a round-shaped formation, as though they were waiting for something. Stood between Shun Lin and Dong Jin was an adult-sized silver mirror. After receiving essence chi from the warriors, the blurry mirror became clearer, and a figure slowly appeared in the mirror. Shun Lin and Dong Jin were tense. They jolted up from their seats and clasped their fists to greet that person. They looked even more respectful than when they were talking with Yang Tian Emperor. The figure in the mirror got clearer. That was a bony old man wearing a grey robe and an ugly green mask. He then asked with a desolate tone, "How is it going?" Shun Lin was solemn. He bent his body while hurrying to answer the old man. "Almost done. At least we can take half of them and leave. After a while, we can take more people. When the pressure gets higher, the number of people with different thoughts will increase too." The old man in the mirror nodded, his tone cold and low. "So why did you need to contact me?" "Shi Yang is back," Shun Lin scooped, muttering. Shi Yang, the old man in the silver mirror suddenly got stirred up. He shouted, "Keep an eye on him. That kid is a troublemaker. Don't let him ruin our business. Pay attention to him, but don't provoke him. I will think of a plan to eliminate him." Shun Lin and Dong Jin were stunned. They all knew the identity and the cultivation base of the man in the mirror. A strong warrior like him valued Shi Yang that much, which frightened them. At this moment, they vaguely recognized that the information they had about Shi Yang wasn't sufficient. Shi Yang's really cunning and wicked. "You guys shouldn't contact me for the time being. Things I asked you to do, you can also slow down," the old man pondered. "Just wait. Don't leave. Keep an eye on them for me. I'll handle Shi Yang." Shun Lin and Dong Jin agreed quickly. All of a sudden, there came a beast howling from far away. A thick blood scent arose from a far distance. Shun Lin and Dong Jin were frightened. They excused themselves, retrieved the silver mirror, then scattered disorderly. Grabbing a Nirvana realm warrior, Dong-jin asked furiously, "What's going on?" "Beasts." The other wore a panic-stricken face. "At least 10 beasts. Perhaps they have a level 8 beast, too. They are moving towards the master of the family. So frightening," the young warrior said quickly. Abruptly, he talked again with fright. "Should we get back there? Or else, we can leave now. I don't feel good about it." "Coward. If we leave in this little case, we are going to burn all our effort." Dong-jin slapped the man and then shouted, "All of you, follow me back." Shun-lin didn't say anything, as he was considering the situation in his heart. Then, he ran together with Dong-jin towards the Yang family's shelter. Ru. Crazy roaring and howling reverberated from everywhere, covering the Yang family's shelter. Members of the Yang family shivered in fear on hearing the beast roaring and howling. They were pale, but they had gritted their teeth and prepared to counter the enemy. "Master? Where's the headmaster?" Shun-lin and Dong-jin hurried to get back. There had not been any big damage. After they had confirmed the situation, they exhaled in relief. Then, they asked for Yang Tian Emperor's whereabouts. "I don't know. The headmaster said that he was going out to hunt beasts. He hasn't come back yet," an official disciple of the Yang family answered him. "The heck? Why does he need to hunt the beasts at this moment? We aren't in the endless sea now," Dong-jin muttered, his face grimaced. Many official disciples of the Yangs put on a furious countenance when they heard Dong-jin's utterance. Their eyes sparkled with anger. "Dong-jin, you don't have the right to comment what the headmaster did." Yang Zhua walked over, glaring at him coldly. His face was wry as he didn't think that someone dared to doubt Yang Tian Emperor in the Yang family. The corner of Dong-jin's mouth jerked up as he was about to mock more. Right at this moment, Shi Yang appeared from nowhere. His eyes were as sharp and cold as a saber, gazing at Dong-jin. A murderous aura started to rise from his body. Dong-jin changed his countenance. He remembered the old man's attitude towards Shi Yang. All of a sudden, he felt shivers running through his spine. He swallowed what he wanted to say. Shi Yang curled his lips and beamed a silent smile, but he didn't launch a brutal strike. "The master is back. Headmaster is back," the outer guard suddenly shouted. Shortly after his report, Yang Tian Emperor appeared with a bloody chest. He looked struggling and distressed. By the lake, all the warriors, including the Yang family's disciples and the warriors who had submitted to the Yangs, paled as they saw their master's appearance. In their hearts, Yang Tian Emperor was the peerless warrior at his second sky of spirit realm. He had the competence to counter even a higher realm expert. Even in this divine great land, Yang Tian Emperor had a high position. A true expert like him got hurt badly with that dispirited posture. What kind of danger he had encountered? People's hearts plunged down to the bottom of the valley. "This situation is not good," Yang Tian Emperor was solemn like never before. "There are 2 level 8 beasts coming. I'm hurt severely. In the next hour, the beasts will come here." When he finished, everybody else paled. A deep despair appeared on their faces. Besides the 2 level 8 beasts, there are some level 7, a couple hundred level 6 and 5 beasts. The 2 level 8 ones lead them. Yang Tian Emperor said without hesitating. "We shouldn't scatter. Otherwise, we will get hurt or even die. I'll stay here to see if I can stop this wave. This will help more people survive." Yang Tian Emperor was begrudging, his eyes sorrowful. He rose his muscular arm and said, "Today could be the day the Yang family is over. I, Yang Tian Emperor, have no power to bring you a better future. I'm sorry, guys. At this moment, I can only put forth everything to keep more people alive. I'll stay, and all main branches of the Yang family will stay here to support too. I hope most of you will survive. Master, we are going with you. Wherever you are, we will be with you. We will never leave you. We will not let the headmaster bear all the things for us." A part of the warriors who had submitted to the Yang family shouted bravely as they heard Yang Tian Emperor's words. However, a bigger number stayed idle. Some of them paled. Their eyes sparkled while they were trying to make up their minds on a hard decision. Shun Lin and Dong Jin were startled. They weren't sure if it was young Tian Emperor's plan. They just stood and frowned, waiting for the dangerous change to come. Ru. A terrifying roar stormed over like enraging sea clouds, bringing the bloody murderous aura while coming towards them from a far distance. The rumbling sounds of trees breaking echoed continuously from a far place. A frightening aura quickly filled the place. Something was moving closer to this area. Many people revealed their despair. Some of them had made up their minds. Many were anxious, looking at Shun Lin and Dong Jin while urging them with their looks. Shun Lin and Dong Jin exchanged looks. They all saw fear in the other's eyes. They hesitated, but didn't dare to give out a decision. Abruptly, they made up their minds. Master, we'll take a part of us to leave here first. After we bring the Low Realm warriors to a safe place, we'll be back to help you. Shun Lin stepped forward. He even forgot the etiquette, trying to be more honest. Please take care, Master. We will not let you down. We will protect our elite force. No matter what way he chose to conceal this, leaving at this critical time was a sign of betrayal. Everybody here had a bright vision. They all knew he was just saying the F***king excuse to protect his cowardice. Shun Lin, you big old dog. Ling Ming, one of the 5 yakshas, thundered indignantly. When your family left you wounded in the middle of a herd of beasts, who saved you? Who had risked his life to save you from the mouth of the beasts? I didn't think that you could be such coward. You are a shameless, ungrateful bastard. I'm thinking for the Yang family. I want to fulfill the headmaster's wish. Shun Lin changed his face, shouting with a vicious complexion. Ha ha. Ling Ming laughed out loud, shook his head and sneered. Everybody knows your heart, old friend. Shun Mu was so embarrassed that he got enraged. However, at this moment, they all heard the beast roaring again. His pupils shrank. He didn't bother with Ling Ming's reaction, just clasped his fist and greeted young Tian Emperor, then shouted, "Come with me. We should survive for our master." After that, he and Dong Jin flew up first, heading to the area of the 7 ancient factions in the perpetual night forest. The crowd of the warriors who had submitted to the Yang family scooped, not daring to look at the members of the Yangs. They gingerly walked for a while, then soared up to the sky to get away from the place. Ling Ming and the other members of the Yang family looked at the leaving people with a grimaced countenance. It was beyond their expectations that the number of warriors who decided to leave with Shun Lin was not just half of them, it was more than 2/3. Around 1,500 warriors had submitted to the Yang family. At this moment, more than 1,000 decided to leave. The brave ones who stayed weren't more than 500. Although he had prepared himself well, seeing this big contradiction, young Tian Emperor didn't feel good. His face was bitter as he shook his head with an intense pain in his heart. He had thought that at least half of them would decide to stay. No one had expected this level of a pathetic situation. We should eradicate the malignant tumor. Great-grandpa, don't be upset. I think one day, they will know how big the mistake they made today is. Shi Yang's face was also grimaced. He clenched his jaw, talking mercilessly. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.